MMH. Thera yawned as she made her way to the kitchen, finding breakfast ready with Mora and Sonia both already there, the soul spirit being obvious in the way he stared at the cook. Morning. Morning, Ben called back, sliding her a plate before joining the rest of them at the table. Sleep well. No, can you guess why? The stress of wondering how things are going to end up for Bloom? Huh. What's happening to Bloom? Mora perked up, feeling concerned as his creator but relaxed as Thera rubbed his back. He's fine, sweetheart. Well, a few people seem to have some crushes on him, but it's nothing to worry about. You seem worried. More about him not understanding what he might be getting into than from any actual problem. It's fine, she told him. My actual point of stress is Ben and whatever's going on in his soul to have you stare at him like that. But don't tell me. I'm waiting till he's ready. Actually, the gods should currently be having a meeting about me right now, so I can let you guys know. Ben spoke up, making Thera roll her eyes. Do you not feel at all concerned about the sheer number of meetings the gods have about you specifically? Not really. That's kind of just life. It isn't for literally anyone else, but okay. Hit me with it. Okay. I'm just going to show you. He slid his card over, hiding nothing and letting both Thera and Sonia look at it, seeing the wall of text it had become to react to. I think it would actually be easier for you to just tell us rather than have us try and read through all of that, Sonia muttered, leaving Thera with her own reaction. Psychopath. I feel like that's not the change you should be narrowing in on. It's the easiest one to find. How'd you earn this one? Well, my very rude god decided to call me that and it stuck. But considering he called me that a couple days ago too and it didn't then, I have to assume one of my new skills increased the probability of getting the title. But also fine, if it's too much to read then give me a second. He took his card back and hid all but the relevant bits of information that he wanted to reveal, turning it back to them and getting the expected disbelief in return. How? Sonia asked, the only thing she could in the face of the levels and skills he'd revealed. Well, I've been using a god soul to train my sacrilege, and long story short, I was able to do the same thing to awaken my affinities too. And you just had to do it for your two worst ones, Thera said, looking like she'd formed a headache in those past few seconds. No wonder you wanted to keep this a secret because this looks so bad and… My stress resistance just leveled up. Teehee? Don't act cute right now, Ben. Not when I'm going to be wondering for the next week if the gods are going to decide to kill or imprison you. Why did you awaken these? Well, the good news is that thanks to my sacrilege they really probably can't, so I should be fine, and as for why, it was actually more of a side effect of training my sacrilege instead of intent. Which would be true if I ignored the fact that you got Yuzu yesterday to cast those spells on you. If you come across this story on Amazon, it's taken without permission from the author. Report it. Well, yeah, and I'll admit, I did mean to do it, but it was less for the sake of whatever power I'd gain by awakening those skills than it was to get the attribute bonuses for my soul modifying tomorrow, which is going to be insane, I might add. Genuinely, I'm about to change the world in the craziest way possible. MMH, I suppose when I think about it that way it seems justifiable. Thera agreed through narrowed eyes, not fully believing that there was no motivation to see what sort of power he'd get for it. Is that going to be enough to keep any gods from wanting to smite you? What all my years on this planet have taught me is that so long as the majority of gods on this world don't want me dead, I'll be fine. Not as reassuring as you seem to think it is. The other factor is that if they do decide to kill me, then they'll just have to deal with a very unhappy god of evil, destruction, and sacrilege who's going to have some strong opinions about having just been murdered. Why was that somewhat more reassuring? Thera wondered to herself. But okay, I'm going to believe in my heart that you're useful enough that nobody is going to do anything too rash because of this, so in that case, what's the plan for the day? Keeping your head down and not causing a fuss until you show how useful you are to the planet tomorrow. I mean, I really am always useful to the planet if my numerous inventions and discoveries somehow weren't an indicator, so today's going to be spending some time trying to determine any less apparent functions of my two authorities and then after that, stop in briefly to see a friend. During all of which I'll be on my best behavior, making sure I don't awaken any other skills that the gods or the world at large might have a problem with. Well, that's all pretty interesting. He'd continued with his experiments on the way to the shop and throughout work that day, discovering more aspects of his authorities he hadn't been able to find the night before, all with varying levels of benefits. It seemed his own sense of evil and destruction affected how he perceived a skill as well, not just the skill holder or society at large, but it was a discovery he was only able to make thanks to seeing destruction in Dallaire, the only skill he truly viewed as destructive in nature. Everything else was simply too subjective, with his own sense of morality unwilling to apply those labels to any random ability, even if it seemed to hold some negative connotations. More interesting was that, in the same way there were degrees to which he could detect what evil and destructive skills a person held in general, there were degrees he could determine how close or far a person was to leveling them, based entirely around how much the skill belonged to those domains either in general or at a given moment, which further allowed him to estimate the sort of leveling reduction his skills would give. It was overall too complicated for him to estimate to the minute how far someone would be from leveling a given skill, but it did allow him to see a certain range so long as someone followed a specific training plan which could have applications for how he trained both Dallaire and himself. Both skills applied to him as well after all, and at the third tier their effects were going to be significant, leaving him to wonder just what he'd be able to grow. I could potentially get more third-tier awakenings out of this, especially if my authorities level any more too, and there's always the chance that my touch skills could change to soul skills like Artisan's Touch did, but beyond that, the way it looks like this is going to affect attributes is going to be pretty handy too. No longer just skills, it appeared that, depending on if an attribute was used in an evil or destructive way, it would get a boost as well depending on if it was being used for such, with Dallaire's use of destruction letting him help her raise her mana and mana recovery too while she was practicing, and showed the versatility of getting an inclination to that tier. Man, Nair was right. I really am going to be tempted to become a worse person because of this. Really, no comment from up there? Guess they're all still stuck in their meeting. A meeting he admittedly wouldn't want that passing thought to reach, even if what it implied for him was rather significant. He may not have had a way to use most of his attributes in an evil or destructive way. He'd be able to train his mana with it a fair bit if he really wanted, but the biggest winner would continue to be his intelligence for the things he was currently doing to harrow in his head. But I'm now at over 200,000 points of the stuff. Sure, it's handy for my actualization, but there really are other attributes I'd rather get some bonuses to. I really should see if there's a way for me to awaken any of my other attribute enhancements too. A nice idea at least, but one to try and work on in the background. There was only one other effect of his authorities he'd discovered, but it was one of the most straightforward. The duration. When he applied the effects to a person, they could expect to continue to benefit from the effect without it weakening for roughly 6 hours after, cutting out completely when it was used up. While that would mean little for himself as the permanent holder of the skill and therefore always under its effect, it did give him a handy time frame to know what others would be operating on, especially if they were to train under it while he wasn't around. I'll be able to keep track of how long anyone training under me can enjoy that benefit without needing to constantly apply it and focus on other things which could be handy, but for now, it looks like that's all I'm figuring out today, which means it's time to go see a friend and hope he doesn't panic too badly. Walking up the last flight of stairs, Ben found Verbum exactly where he expected. His face buried in a book too deep for him to notice the other's approach until he joined him at the table, the record holder giving a pronounced sigh. "What do you want, Ben? How did you know it was me without looking?" 1. Not many people have access to this floor, which makes it a great area to get some nice, private work done, and 2. Anyone else who could come up here would take a different table. Verbum told him, finally taking his eyes off his book to look at his companion, and was left giving a shrill scream for what he saw. Right until Ben materialized a gag around his mouth and ropes to bind his limbs to keep him from throwing himself down the staircase in a panic. "Okay, just try to relax. Everything is fine, buddy." Still, he tried to scream through his gag, impressing Ben for the fact that he managed to keep conscious despite his obvious fear, with the first bit of the outburst being enough to drive the closest guards up the stairs to check on them. Finding Verbum trapped while Ben sat across from him, trying his best to seem innocent. "So, I know this looks bad, but Verbum's just having an episode. I'll release him when he calms down." The two briefly met eyes before one shrugged, the entire library having seen that third tier's reactions before and by that point was well familiar with the one with him, Ben's reputation being one that would last for a while to come. "All right, let us know if you need a hand with him. We know he can get feisty when he's like this." "Appreciate it." comfortably resolved in a way that left a look of betrayal in the other summon's eyes. Ben watched him struggle for only a bit longer until giving up, flopping face down on the desk in defeat for Ben to release. Feeling better? Words can't properly express how you make me feel. Very romantic of you. So you're a third tier now? For 4 horrific things? And at the 3rd level for one of them. I personally wouldn't describe Eldritch Mind as horrific, but otherwise that about sums it up, yes. Wait. Did you make me pass out at that job thing so I couldn't see this? Verbum. That is kind of a hurtful accusation. If I'd done that, then why would I be revealing myself to you now? Okay. Then what do you want? Just a few little checks as to what some of the stuff in my status does. Nothing too deep. We look and then I'll get out of your hair. Easy peasy. Narrowing his eyes, Verbum stared at Ben for a moment before giving in. Fine, which bits? Multiversal inclination, a few of the bonuses different jobs got me, and my blessing, Child of Chaos. Wasn't that last one called something else before? The tail has been stolen. If detected on Amazon, report the violation. Hence why I want it checked out. Another look, far more judgmental than the last that ended up followed by a deep sigh. Fine. Give me a bit and let's go through it because I have plenty of work still to do. You're the best, Verbum. I'll make sure to leave you an offering of food once we're done. Next time, lead with that. They have me so busy searching the system for information. I haven't eaten since I got here. Don't look so happy, Myriad told him when he showed up that night. His god and Hellori both collapsed on the ground in exhaustion. You deserve to be good and miserable for once. I'm miserable plenty of times. Let me enjoy the good news when I get it. So, who wants to hear some of the answers about a few of the more mysterious bits on my status? Fine, Hellori groaned, coming off just as beaten as the cube beside her. Say it so we can start airing our grievances. All right, I can see we've got a tough crowd here today, but whatever. Outsider bonuses apply to skills that are unnatural to this universe, which likely just means my rule bending, which is kind of lame seeing as how I've only found a single use for it that would blow me up too if I'm not careful. But it seems to contribute to skills I use in ways that seem unnatural to the universe too, which is at least giving benefits to my actualization and maybe a few others, it's hard to tell. Multiversal bonuses and my multiversal inclination are both more interesting and more straightforward. They give me bonuses to skills from outside of my home reality. Doesn't sound particularly useful either, Myriad grumbled, widening the grin on Ben's face. Which would be fair until you consider that, despite the fact I currently live here, this isn't my home reality. I'm getting bonuses to all of the skills that would be impossible to get on Earth, and while there's a few I'm questioning considering that Connect in theory seems like it should be usable to some extent in any universe where life is possible, given it basically just requires a soul, my magic and plenty of other options are going to be benefiting from it. Unless you're going to try to awaken them, there's nowhere else for your magics to grow, Hellori pointed out, getting an exasperated look from Ben. Wow, you guys really are being haters tonight. Considering that if the world doesn't end and I don't die a tragic death, I'll be trying to awaken them in the future, this is absolutely a good thing. It doesn't have to be immediately useful to be handy. Finally, we've got the changed blessing, Child of Chaos. Does anyone else have any more sharp words before we start? I'll wait to hear what you have to say and then decide, Myriad told him. Fine. So, Child of Chaos, while we'd been looking at it as a change from Witness of Chaos, it would be more accurate to describe it as an endpoint. Witness of Chaos was slowly adapting me to the chaos, and taking Outsider finished it. Supposedly, I can now survive between universes without dying or being horribly mutated, even if I have what I would consider to be some significant concerns about it, such as how I do a little thing called breathing out there. What am I even supposed to say to that, Ben? I personally went with cool when I found out. I guess the nature of my soul has changed to protect me from it. So I guess we can officially stop pretending you're mortal then. Great. Excuse me, I'm still very killable, considering that I was able to save the world from 1, outsiders are 2. But you are an outsider now, Hellori pointed out. Maybe in a purely technical sense if you consider an outsider to be anything that can survive the chaos, otherwise I'm pretty damn inside. Look, on the one hand, sure this might be a significant change, but on the other, since I'm not really in a position to do anything with this information, it's actually just a fun fact. A neat little tidbit about your favorite human. Fine, Myriad told him as he rolled over before getting back up to hover in the air. In the end, this new nonsense is less important than your last nonsense. Wait, you were lying on your side that entire time? Yes. Man, I really do need to draw a smiley face on you or something. Not the point right now. We had our conversation about you. It went okay. But it's also not quite over. Oh God. Okay, what's next then? How much more threatening do I have to do? None. Instead, be on your best behavior while I bring a few others to come by and talk to you, and hopefully, you'll manage to convince them that your destiny as the god of sacrilege, evil, and destruction isn't going to be a poison for the universe as a whole. Ben? Pix nodded when he arrived. For more gods at his side. With all of them looking like they were trying to hide the same state Ben had found both Myriad and Hellori in when he'd first shown up that night. You've been busy. I always am. Gonna be honest, when I was told I was gonna have to talk to others, I was expecting a bigger crowd. For the sake of keeping things smooth, this conversation between us is being projected to the rest of them. They can have whatever fights and squabbles they want to without interrupting. So, this is just a conversation, huh? I'd prefer it to be yes. All right? He agreed with an exaggerated shrug. Then let's hear it. Thank you. Then let's start with the big ones, shall we? The third level of your evil god of sacrilege, as well as holding the third-tier skills Evil and Destruction Authority, you're now the holder of 4 third-tier skills total. That's correct. How is that possible? Not to be the sort of jerk who answers a question with a question, but let me genuinely ask you first, have you all really not figured out how I've managed it yet? It's clearly related to one of the crystals in Analia having been swapped out. But beyond that, no. Alright then, I'm somewhat relieved you've at least found that much, but yes, it's related. I've been using the souls of the forbidden gods to train my sacrilege. It just so happens that the sort of way I'm using them happens to be an excellent vehicle for experience when it comes to the sort of things someone might label as evil or destructive. You're torturing them, Fix said, narrowing his eyes as he did while Ben gave his answer in naked indifference. I am. No sense of guilt for such a thing, I take it? No. My turn questioning now in this little conversation we have going on. What percentage of the gods have ever condemned a soul to hell? I couldn't tell you. More than 50% though, right? Yeah, not shocking. Now, of those more than 50%, how many of them feel a sense of guilt for it? If I should be feeling guilty, then surely they should too. No matter what harm any mortal could have conceivably done on this world or any other, none of it can be on the scale of giving the demon system access, yet they were all condemned to a realm of eternal torture, rather than just a few weeks of use to help me train. Many would argue that's not the same. Why not? Because there's a small degree of separation there, letting the gods who do such things believe they've kept their hands clean. As if sending anyone to a torture realm is meaningfully different just because they aren't actively doing any of the torturing themselves. Or is it different because I'm actively getting something out of it, beyond the perverse knowledge that someone below me is suffering forever? Or maybe I read you wrong and you meant that far more positively. That no matter what, the bit of suffering I'm inflicting isn't eternal, and thus shows again that I really am more moral than so many of the great and mighty gods of this universe. Ben dash. MMH, not that last one I see then. So does it come down to it being worse because you perceive a god's soul to have more value than a mortal's? I could argue this point all day if you'd like. Ben, Fixed stopped him again. You've made your point, but that doesn't make what you're doing acceptable either. And coming from you, I even believe that, but let's be real here, Fixed. When I got my god to make the reveal of my 2 new awakenings to the rest of you, deciding to let you all be informed rather than hiding it away in an attempt to show some goodwill, how many among you once more suggested trying to throw my soul into hell, damning me to an eternity of torment? No, I will not lie. I even believe you're right that what I'm doing is morally objectionable, but I do not believe the gods to be in a high enough moral standing to judge me for it. So you're going to keep doing it then? Yes. Why? Unauthorized usage. This tale is on Amazon without the author's consent. Report any sightings. It's the best way I've found to level my sacrilege, and it looks like my authorities are going to be handier than I'd expected too. It would be useful to raise them. No, I mean, why do you feel the need? You have those skills at their third tier, why would you continue to try and grow their power? You being serious here? I am. Then where do I begin? Ben asked him. Awakening my authorities was a quick way to grow my attributes some more. Not to put too fine of a point on it, but how many days of work modifying souls am I going to have starting tomorrow? How many people are going to have their attributes grow by hundreds or thousands of points? And what exactly do you all expect the impact to be on the next wave? Sure, I knew from the start that getting these skills was going to make you all uncomfortable, but I also knew it would be worth it. No matter how some up here might turn their nose up at the work I do, this is going to be the most inarguably useful by far. More than anything else, this is going to change the tide of the war, which makes it somehow more disgusting that you all would hold out so much in paying me in attributes. And yet, that is unrelated to your desire to level your sacrilege and your overall thirst for power. Yeah, you're right, it is. In that case, before we get to that, can we at least consider my point about my authorities to be made? Fixed turned to the 4 other gods with him, seeing a range of reactions on their faces before nodding. We can. Good, in that case we can talk about my sacrilege and why I want power in general. Despite what many of you think, I genuinely am somewhat grateful to the gods of this world for giving me a second chance at life, but only somewhat. Let's not play or delude ourselves here. While you all did save me and my classmates, it was out of no sense of goodwill to give some children dying under a horrific circumstance a second chance. It was explicitly to get this world a few more powerful soldiers. I'm not going to hold that against you either. You all did what you needed to do, even if it could be considered morally questionable, but given the circumstances, I can at least somewhat accept it. What I am going to hold against you is your carelessness. He could see a glare from one of the gods, giving a moment to let the other speak if they wanted to, but getting that and not using it allowed Ben to go on. The old head of Craftsman's Tower and the old head of all faith, the first with his plan to use the spirits of the world to end the war and the second killing anyone who slighted him, both holding high positions in this world yet both going unnoticed until it was too late, because when it comes down to it, beyond your work trying to prepare for the demons or look after your own believers, I don't believe any of you care. Hell, just look at Ather. One of the world's 3 demigods, and he was a self-righteous, entitled bastard who just wanted to throw his weight around to get what he wanted, and as far as I could see, he was just allowed to grow up to be like that with little intervention from the gods. Sure, he was Anetha's bastard, but others should have intervened too. And is this an explanation or an accusation? One god finally cut in, getting a look from Fixed for it, even if Ben answered. Both. You want to know why I feel the need to raise my sacrilege? There's a few reasons, but one undeniable one is the fact that I don't feel like I can trust any of you. So what then, it's a threat? No, saying or implying you lot will throw me into hell if I don't do what you want is a threat. Something I've experienced before on top of all of the other nonsense you've put me through. What this is a deterrent and a defense, and can any of you blame me? I shouldn't have to live in fear of the gods getting mad about needing to pay me and threatening my existence over it. It's a topic we've talked to death by this point, and the ending has never once been satisfying because constantly it still comes up. Well, this is me putting an end to it. I want power so I won't have to suffer for any of your negligence in watching over the world, and whenever one of you up here breaks down and decides to kill me, I'm not going to be so weak as to have to sit back and allow it. That's not going to happen, Fixed told him. No? Then no god ever should have told me they would to begin with. You expect a mortal to hear that sort of thing and take it lightly from a being with both power and authority over them? No, I have no intention of starting fights with you about using my power, and while I fully expect to have disagreements about payments still from time to time, we'll handle them as we have been to this point, but this here is the logical endpoint of my treatment. I've always said that I consider you all to be people, and whether it's agreed or not, well, you can't threaten a person while holding a position of power over them and not expect them to want to defend themselves, so there it is. I may not have meant to awaken my sacrilege the way I did, but I won't deny I've wanted to, and now that I not only have but see that I can grow it, I'm going to for the peace of mind it can give me if nothing else. And when you become a god then, just what will you do with all of the power you hold? If I can have it my way, keep to myself and avoid interacting with the other gods of this world as much as possible, though I'll perhaps step in if I ever find out another up here decided to threaten a mortal over something so minor. In general though, you can trust me on this. I'm sick of most of you and would deeply like to keep our eternity together as separate as possible. So there it is, my honest answer with warts and all, as true as I can be. So what's the verdict? Is my existence a blight on this universe that needs to be dealt with? Or can we stop this little farce and let me do the same thing I always do and keep working to try and help save this stupid doomed world? We're not here to threaten you right now, Ben. No? What about any of the gods not here? Irrelevant. Kind of feels relevant to me. It doesn't matter. For good or ill, we are a society, and you are going to be a powerful variable who will one day join us. How much we even could do to you if the gods of the world were to act collectively is already in question, and as you've personally seen, this isn't a matter that we can act in a collective manner, so we're doing the one thing we can. Trying to understand you. I'm exactly what you see on the tin, have been since we'd first started having these meetings. I suppose so. Then is that all you have to say? Well, if we're finishing up, then I suppose I'd like to end on this. For anyone watching, there's clearly some bigger things going on. So stop worrying about me and the things I do when I've constantly shown I'm willing to work to help this world in my own way. If this is still going to be a problem, then leave it for once the third wave is done. Anything else is a waste of your time and mine. Not exactly satisfied, the gods had come to hear him out on his new powers, and he'd given them his honest thoughts, bringing things to some sort of resolution with them before the ones fixed came with left, letting the stone god's shoulders fall in that moment of privacy. You could have stood to be a little friendlier about all of that. Wasn't I? I thought I'd done an excellent job of minding my manners while discussing my grievances and exactly what put me in a position that would drive me to desiring power. Really, I'm not sure what more you could have wanted from me. A heartfelt promise not to misuse the powers you hold? I think I kind of did that by saying I won't harm anyone who won't harm me. I don't care what the gods of this world think. Demanding fair pay and equal treatment isn't antagonistic treatment. Fine, well, if you'll excuse me, I must be off to gauge overall reactions and try to manage them the best I can. So please, keep me somewhat informed of the next disaster you'll cause. Sure, can do, Ben told him, knowing in his heart it would depend on the specifics of the disaster as fixed left, leaving only the two he'd started with still there with him. So, how do you guys think that went? I feel like you could have shared your heartfelt desire to grow in strength to kill the demon's god instead of pointing a finger at the gods here. Maybe, but let's be real, that sounds like a convenient excuse more than anything, and not a very good one. Oh, I have nothing but good intentions as I keep making myself better at hurting and killing gods. It's for the world, honest. No, nobody up there is buying that, at least not enough to matter. My personal, selfish, and honestly still pretty true reason though. They may not like it, but even the ones with their heads firmly up their asses should be able to believe it. When you're threatened, it makes sense to try and defend yourself, even if that defense is just grabbing a stick to swat them off with. Ugh, I suppose that's good enough. At the very least, you weren't overly antagonistic, which is generally about as much as I can hope for whenever you talk to others. Probably also doesn't hurt that I'm about to improve the world's odds in a big way when morning comes. I'm assuming everything is set up. MMH, it's going to be a busy few days for you, but you can handle it. You've got a variety of help at your disposal, which we can discuss later. For now, it's time we join whatever discussions are taking place. So just remember to do your best and show off what a valuable mortal you are. I show that off every single day I'm trapped here, Ben told them, getting no reaction beyond them leaving, off to join whatever chaos there was to be had in whatever meetings would still be going on and leaving him to his lonesome, to practice his skills in the lower realm and to actualize in his personal one, all until the day would start. Okay, I'm ready. I can do this, he told himself, trying to hype himself up for what was sure to be a painful experience. My soul is in the best shape it can be, and I have all of these other soul skills to help it along. It's going to be fine. Stolen from its rightful author, this tale is not meant to be on Amazon. Report any sightings. It's what he insisted on telling himself at least. Even if he was already dreading the bout of soul pain he was about to inflict on himself, with one last thing he'd need to do before he began modifying the souls of the broader world. What everyone would get would depend on his own, that holding true even if he modified his first. And an extra 10% for my own attributes is going to be huge when you consider that everyone will be getting 5 from me after, so I've just got to grit my teeth, do it, and hope that if my soul is still sore by the time I'm done, Mora will be willing to help me out. Knowing he couldn't put it off much longer, Ben did the only thing he could. Looking down at himself, he selected the configuration of essence he wanted and materialized it through his soul. Oh yeah, that stings. It wasn't as bad as what he'd subjected his test demons to when he'd applied 2 souls one after the other, but it was worse than when he'd acquired false Ben. His way of modifying souls clearly lacking compared to however Myriad or Faust would absorb them, but what mattered was that it would get better with time, and with the level that came with it he chose to hope it would be soon as he took out his card to admire the changes it brought. Attributes. A Vitality. 17473. A Vitality Recovery Rate. 964 per hour.
Mana? 47.519.
Mana Recovery Rate. 5,480 per minute. Strength. 13973. Agility. 5330. Stamina. 29558. Intelligence. 261,559. 5% of all of that to every person on the planet bothering to come out. Even agility will grow for everyone by over 250. Intelligence by over 13,000. Wow, this feels like it's going to have some lasting implications that I'm going to choose to ignore. Still, when I actually do the math, our doom feels a lot less impending right now. He was sure there'd be lasting consequences to doing such a thing beyond the war, but if they all got to live to see them, then that barely mattered. Depending on how many he was going to help, it was enough to actually leave him optimistic about their odds for the coming third wave, even if that bit of hope didn't touch how he felt about whatever would come beyond it. So, are you feeling ready for what I can only assume is going to be days of endless work for you? Thera asked him from the side as they made their way to the shop after dropping Mora off with Fontesh. Probably. You feeling ready to help me? PFFF. I personally still need to sleep. You'll get my waking hours and nothing more. Ah, fine. It sounds like I'm going to have access to a swath of mages too to teleport me around to different locations and whatever other ways they can help smooth things out. So I'll take you when I can get you. And just out of curiosity, did you get a time frame for how long this is going to take you to finish? I very foolishly did not. Planning started way before my mind awakened. Okay. But you were still a genius at that point. A dumber genius. Still, how bad could it be? He asked as they passed through his gate, getting to the starting point that was the Magic Towers Adventurers Guild and letting themselves through to the main hall, finding his waiting entourage of mages, with 4 there standing out more than any others. Amy, Jake, and Yuzu, but also Steph, 2 there for their roles as space mages and 1 for her power as a soul mage, with Ben left wondering if Amy's presence had a purpose behind it beyond simply hanging out, with all of them wearing various levels of dread on their face, same as anyone else. Okay. Hey guys, you ready for me? Ben. I take back all of my harsh feelings about learning from you, Jake told him. Because this right here is literally going to be the worst thing you've ever subjected me to. A little dramatic? Yeah? Say that after seeing this. Using an aspect of his non-affinitied magic, Jake projected a bird's-eye view of the city for everyone there to see, showing crowded streets packed with people shoulder to shoulder and the dark splotch filling its connecting ocean implying the same, making clear just how many people would be there to take advantage of his power. Oh Lord. And this is just supposed to be the first city I'm hitting too. Wow, if every place is like this, am I even going to finish this week? No, I will finish this week. Nothing to it but to do it, so let's just figure out how exactly this is going to work. Okay, first things first, who's in charge of managing things here? He asked, getting a pointed look from everyone when he did, with Amy being the one to answer. You. Please tell me that I'm not planning things out with zero notice. You aren't. Steph told him. I and a few others have your flight path. I'll join you for the first stretch if Thera can carry the rest of us around for it. I'm sorry, flight path? What do you think is going to be faster? Everyone walking by you or directly going over everyone's heads? Okay, fair. The other space mages are going to work to help evacuate the people you finish with as best they can while all of this is happening, with different ones here to switch out with me and others to try and handle any emergencies that might pop up given the sheer number of bodies here. Okay. And Yuzu? Currently trying to keep my extreme reaction to your soul private, she told him, unable to take her eyes away from what she was seeing. I more meant your reason to be here, but the fact that you didn't suppress your soul sight as promised is being noted. I'm going to be taken around with you to try and reduce the effects so many millions of people are going to be feeling for your work. And you caught me off guard, it just happened. Okay. And Amy? Everyone else here is focused on you and what you're doing. My job is to make sure our soul mage is safe. All right. And everyone knows how they're swapping out and schedules for it happening? Yes. The rest around him nodded too, all of them getting in their last moments of rest while they could before days of work began, leaving him with one more question. So why did you say I was in charge? Because if we see anything go wrong, we're turning to you to decide what to do. Anything else? Nope, think that's everything. In that case, let's get started. They forced open the door, feeling it push against people already pressed against its other side but didn't have much choice as Ben instantly got to work on them, doing everything he could for whatever benefits it would bring. He modified their souls, looked at their skills to fill their heads with any relevant bits of knowledge, and put his newest abilities to work by giving them all the benefits of his evil and destruction authorities. Hearing levels go off in a few of their heads already as their thresholds were lowered to a point under the weight of those third-tier skills to let them instantly go beyond where they'd been, all while the other space mages got sorted, opening portals and yelling out as they did. If you need to get back to the gate, go through here. For anyone going north out of the city, you're this way. West is this one. Make it snappy. A few more space mages called out their directions, but for what convenience it held, most of them took the shortcut to the gate, filtering out to that broader space until there was finally enough room for Thera to raise Ben and the other four up above the crowd, letting them really get to work. Unauthorized tail usage. If you spot this story on Amazon, report the violation. Seeing the scale of what they'd need to do, he instantly materialized circlets on their head, getting groans for it even if he only split their minds thrice. Two of them getting their perception of time significantly boosted while the third stayed at what was normal for baseline reality for the convenience of conversation, all to speed the process up the best he could for everyone. He'd been expecting a few days of work, but if every city was going to be like that, odds seemed better it would be a month if he didn't empower the people around him and left him to speak out as he did. You all have buff or mana bracelets on, right? We do, Yuzu said, tapping hers while Jake spoke up. But wouldn't it be easier to just get us done first? Maybe, but not to put too fine of a point on it, I'm still going to be growing over however long we're going to be doing this. Your attributes will be better if I save you all for last. Or at least as late as I can get away with, depending on how many days you're with me. Are you kidding? Jake asked him. Other than whenever we get to swap out for the night crew, we're booked up till you're done. This is going to be a nightmare. Huh. And did your teachers manage to get out of it? I didn't see them. They're on the night shift, Amy explained. Yuliel is going to be working with the space mages then, and Vasta is swapping out to carry you. And can we now talk about what's happening in your soul? Yuzu sounded like she was trying not to scream at him, looking all the more frustrated as he put her off. In a minute, a couple of other things to do first. 1. Any chance you could apply some of that soul healing you're spreading out to me? I'm already doing it. Wonderful, that only leaves number 2. Advertising. As the person making all of the results anyone would get that day possible, and more importantly, as the Apostle of Myriad, what Ben saw was the perfect opportunity to fill that role and fill it well. Whispering into every mind he touched was already a given, letting them know directly who was responsible for every attribute, level, and skill they might acquire, even if that last one was going to be played by ear. Considering the domains he ruled over, He was going to be in no hurry to claim responsibility for any skill that was viewed in a negative light, although he would be making sure to also tell people which of their skills to train while under his effects for best results. But that still wasn't enough. Whether he'd been prepared for it or not, it didn't change the fact that what was happening was a big event and he wanted something big to go with it, and given his mana was going to be in constant use to modify the many souls who'd come for his work, that left a different route. Actualizing. All at once, he filled the sky above him with signs and cubes, floating up there under his mental power, and with the current strength of his mind being well over 200,000, didn't strain him at all to keep up. It was all simple after all, just plain constructs, colored as needed to give Myriad's proper appearance, as well as to boldly write on the signage that the entire event was specifically brought forth by the Church of Myriad, blotting out the sky and moving with him as they went, drawing many eyes from both those he'd already helped and those still waiting, and left Amy looking between his constructs and himself. You know, the more I see you slap your god's name on, the more I think that you're missing out on your actual calling working in marketing. What can I say? Brand recognition is important for a smaller god, and I've got to get the converts I can for him. By this point, nobody on this planet should not know who he is. But just in case there's anyone who still hasn't heard the good word, this is me changing that. Are the other gods okay with this? I'm not exactly giving them a choice here. That reminds me. Thera spoke up while carrying them all just over the crowd's heads. Are any of them going to try and kill you when you're done being useful? Well, with my power, I'm never going to be done being useful, but probably not. We even had a nice, calm, friendly discussion to clear the air last night. Plus, I've still got a few jobs left that I oh so generously offered to use to help anyone else they wanted me to. Who could possibly want to kill me before the war is done? I don't like that last bit you ended with. Don't worry. In life, in general, I just find it to be handy to be too useful to kill, and I am absolutely nailing it. I don't know, Yuzu said, not even pretending she wasn't staring into his soul. I feel like you're trying to make a compelling case for not being worth the risk. Why? Steph asked. What has he done this time? Become a god, Ben added unhelpfully, getting her to roll her eyes when he said it. Yeah, we were all there. Sure. Except I did it again. Knowing there were sure to be questions and seeing that they'd have nothing but time while he worked, Ben began to explain the details of the newest changes within him, the reasons behind them and what he'd gained as well while they went, making their way through the first city he had to help. From covering the city to skimming across the surface of the ocean, seeing the denizens of the depths sit just beneath the water for the touch of his skills until the space mages down below helped move them away, finishing that one area and letting them move on to the next as day changed to night and the group he was working with was switched out for a new one, the process repeating again and again and again through different cities until eventually a week passed, leaving even Ben feeling the strain. He may not have needed rest, but he did desire stimulation, with the entire process being nothing but pure boredom beyond the various new skills he was able to add to his enchanted rings as he was simply ferried around to do his work, no matter how it might have changed the world in the process. Yet even then, he wasn't done. It had reached a point that it felt like the gods were scamming him, with the only reason he allowed it being that he wanted it to soften the blow of both the changes within his status that had caused such a fuss as well as the fact that it was making decent training for deep connection. As the days flew by, he touched and modified hundreds of millions of souls across the planet, affecting the nature of his mind as well, from Eldritch Mind taking in whatever unique aspects and thought patterns existed between all of those races. But once the crowded cities ran out, the space mages stationed with him got to take on greater roles in all of that as well, transporting him from the gate network where the majority of the gathering points had been located to other, more isolated meeting points that weren't so easy for people to travel from, adding a new dimension to his work while he was there. Amongst everything else he'd done, he'd given instructions for everyone at the 7th level for the magics he could awaken at the 8th to find a church on the gate network and explain their situation to stay there to practice, along with anyone who'd already managed to reach the 8th beforehand, so that if they could get the last level they needed, then he could awaken them again, and it seemed like there'd be plenty to do when he was done. News that someone was able to help the holders of specific magics awaken had spread enough during his first awakening event that he knew anyone with a chance had been pushing themselves to the limits to take advantage of it. But for the more isolated villages, he needed to get anyone done when he found them at the 8th level, as well as marking down locations of anyone at the 7th to return to once the rest were over, painting a hectic picture of endless work to be done for himself and everyone he was with until finally, on the 10th day since he started, it mostly came to an end. "All right," Ben said, relieved that they would be finishing that day. "Myriad, I'm nearly done with all of this bullshit, which you all severely underpaid me for. Out of curiosity, are we sure the other gods aren't trying to make me explicitly evil with their constant penny pinching? It's hard to express just how much more I deserved. Even if you didn't pay me before my awakenings with what I've just done, you all easily should have given me an extra 10,000 to everything without complaining. Do you know how many souls I modified by the end of this? Loud, incorrect, buzzing noise to you then because I counted. 437,564,012. Considering the global population is in the low billions, I've literally just empowered a hefty percentage of the population. You actually don't because I can feel you not doing that math that implies. Across the world, all added up, I've given roughly 380 billion points to Vitality, 21 billion Vitality Recovery, 1 trillion Mana, 120 billion Mana Recovery, 305 billion Strength, 117 billion Agility, 647 billion Stamina, and ending with an altogether unbelievable 5.8 trillion Intelligence. Genuinely, tell Fixed and any other god who likes me to throw those numbers out the next time someone questions if I'm a force for good on this world or not, and then ask them if they've done anything near as much for the people of the planet. And if any one of them says yes, tell me so I can try to beat them up. That if I'd been given even a single attribute point for every person whose soul I modified then with that raw power, I would have been able to fill the world with. Not only would we actually have been basically guaranteed to win the next wave, we could have stomped our way through every portal the demons are going to come through and slaughtered whatever planet we found on the other side. Genuinely, even for a pessimist like me and even with the demons' gods still in the equation, that feels like it would have been certain victory. If you come across this story on Amazon, be aware that it has been stolen from Royal Road. Please report it. Fine, I guess I can believe that, but then tell me the truth. Looking at what I've done here, can you honestly say it wouldn't have been better for the gods of the world to spend every drop of faith they hold on raising my attributes and passing that growth on to the rest of the planet, rather than however you're all actually planning on spending your faith for the next wave? Yeah, that's what I thought, Ben sighed. So maybe float the idea around a bit when you guys all calculate what an impact my work down here is going to have for our odds as is, and then consider the fact that in a couple of months, I can safely do this again once more. Just saying, I know plenty aren't going to like the idea of making me even more powerful than I currently am, but I'm really only openly antagonistic to a few gods. Not enough that they shouldn't be taking advantage of the resource I am. Just something that should probably be discussed while it's still an option. Before people start dying en masse and the world is destroyed because this planet is ruled by stupid, short-sighted, immortal bastards. No, we're going to start making our way back, so start sending everyone who reached the 8th level to Elvet's residence in all faith. We've only got a couple more stops to make. One of which ended up being a gathering point that held a familiar village, the Dryads keeping to themselves in the nearby town they ended up in, making no effort to socialize with the rest and keeping that way until they landed, seeing some waiting faces. "Ben!" Dallaire yelled, pulling Mora behind her and jumping at him when she arrived, with both of them getting exhausted hugs from him in return before Thera stole Mora away to hug just as tight. "This is taking so long. When are you going to finish so we can get back to working?" "Should be tomorrow, kiddo. Sorry. This was so much worse than I'd been expecting." "Okay, good. So, it's our turn now." "Yep, all of the adults." "Boo, let me do it too." "Ha, maybe later. As things are, there's really no denying that what I'm giving would be a frightening amount of power to hand off to any children. Something he and the gods were largely in agreement on, even if he wasn't sure if they were right. Kids would be in just as much danger as anyone else once the third wave came, but on the other hand, a child throwing a temper tantrum while holding over 2,000 points of mana or 700 points of strength was a frightening thought. It might have been able to protect them from danger, but it could just as easily turn them into a significant danger themselves until then. Anobi. Of course, it's not like plenty of adults aren't going to misbehave with this power too. MMH, maybe I'll reconsider doing it for Dallaire at least in the future, after discussing it with her mother first. "Does that mean I can't either?" Mora asked, surprising Ben with the question. In all of that, It seemed like spirits and elementals both had been specifically hiding from the event. He hadn't seen one hanging around or going up to Thera in all of that time, and the reason was somewhat understandable. Mana-based life didn't grow. It seemed to be a natural rule for them, leaving the question of what could happen if he tried, and he didn't know if there was a safe way to experiment like that. It certainly wasn't something he was going to attempt on the child he was raising with no prior practice. Which means I should stop in to talk to some of the other great spirits first to see their thoughts on it. Sorry, Mora. It's something we can look at in the future, but not right now. Okay? MMH, okay? His disappointment was clear. The soul spirit have his own curiosities on the matter and wanted to experience it for himself, but he didn't argue, instead changing to intensely observing those around them as Ben modified their souls, doing it slowly at least for the boy to take in and hearing the grumbles and groans as he did. And with that, since it looks like it's only going to be the Dryads who make the cut, I'm sure Hentath and the others have told you before, so 8th level plant magic users gather around me to be awakened. And Mora, well, you can see the spell Yuzu is placing on all of them. If you want to add anything, then it's up to you. But if not, then that's all right, you get me. I like them, he nodded. I want them to get the most out of this. Ha! Glad to hear it, kiddo. In that case, let's get started. With the enhancements of the Soul Mage and Soul Spirit both, Ben transferred both knowledge and power to help shape their act of materialization, creating the seeds that would push their magics over the edge and filled the area with the mana being pulled into their bodies, awakening another handful of Dryads and getting them even more benefits that the last as their newly modified souls blossomed under the change, raising their power all of the higher and ending things there. As much as he would have liked to stay, there really was only a few stops left and then whatever awakening still to do so with that so close they didn't linger, instead playing favorites by getting Steph to open a portal back to their village and saying a quick goodbye after, promising to be done by the next day to pick Mora up and to see the rest again. Finished! Ben cheered as he let himself lay back on the ground once everyone who could be awakened was in Elvet's residence, leaving the world with new awakened mages of all sorts, including giving the planet an aquatic archmage in the process. Sort of, maybe finished. In a few days, he'd need to go back to a few places he'd only hit at the end to see if any awakenings would be possible for a few remaining individuals, but otherwise he was done, freed from those endlessly boring days of work to get back to his life. Please be a bit more definitive about this, man, Jake complained. This was terrible, and I never want to participate in anything like this again. Well, first of all, at least you guys got breaks because for me, it was 10 straight days of the most mind-numbingly boring work I could have been doing, and second, I know I can safely modify a soul twice so, assuming nobody decides to kill me. Ben pointedly yelled up at the heavens above. I will be able to repeat the process. Is that even a good idea? Yuzu asked him. The beast form holders are born with altered souls. Are these modifications going to be passed down? Didn't do any breeding tests, so I don't know, and while that could potentially be catastrophic, Amy helpfully cut in, being ignored by Ben when she did. Bad. It couldn't exactly be worse than everyone on the planet being murdered and eaten. Much like so many people being turned into demigods, we're going to chalk it up as a future problem and worry about the rest later. For now, if you guys want it, then it's your turn. While his physical attributes weren't given a chance to grow in the past few days, his intelligence, mana, and vitality all had, meaning his friends there would be getting the best he had to offer, and none of them turned him down. Whatever reservations they might have held about potential long-term consequences, they couldn't help but agree. Better to be alive to worry about them then, and with all of them ready, he reached out with his mana and materialized through their souls, getting the expected groans as he did. Oh my God! I don't even know what words to use to describe this, Jake complained as he tried to nurse his everything. Ha, yeah, that's soul pain for you. You get used to it. You really shouldn't, Yuzu commented, focusing on trying to treat Thera since herself and the other two would be able to enjoy the benefits of her magic when they were done. How often would you say your soul hurts? At this point, basically every day. Considering you had mine healed up by day 3 of all of that. This last week is probably the longest I've gone without it being sore in ages. It's no wonder your soul looks like that. A little offensive. I'll have you know a bunch of the changes to my soul have nothing to do with the way I have to constantly stretch it out. I think the only word I can use to describe yours is calloused. Weird choice, not a fan. Anyway, ignoring the indescribable pain you're all going through, how do you all feel? I don't think ignoring it is an option, Amy chimed in, going through the same as the rest of them. This takes how long to heal? Without a soul mage by your side? Seems like up to a couple weeks. You, who conveniently have yuzu and souls that don't actively resist affinity mana. I'd be shocked if it takes you more than a few hours. Now, actually answer the question. Ugh. My head feels obnoxiously clear. It's like it's letting me experience everything else I'm going through in high definition. That would be the extra 13,000 points to intelligence you just got. Anything else? Everything feels different, Thera answered. If it weren't for how much I want to curl up and wait for the feeling to pass, I'd say I feel good enough to do anything. Especially my mana. It feels like I can actively feel how much I'm absorbing. You actually might be able to. Considering the size of your pool in particular, your recovery rate has always been surprisingly low, and with how much you've been using while carrying us around, it's probably easier to tell how much it's recovering. That particular change in Thera would have brought the amount of time she'd need to refill her pool from empty from 30 hours to just below 19. A substantial difference which would likely only show its true value when the next wave arrived. As slow as her regeneration might have been, that was only when compared against her total mana, something that was a distinct challenge to use up, only having happened once before. The author's content has been appropriated. Report any instances of this story on Amazon. But for now, I'm happy to call this finally done. This may have been days of our lives that we're never getting back, but it's finished. Until you have to do it again, Amy pointed out. We're ignoring that, so for now it was great seeing you guys, but we officially have to go off to do literally anything else. On the way back home, literally anything else included a pit stop in Analia to address the question Mora had raised in Ben's head. Needing a great spirit there to do it and finding one soon enough in the form of Abris, the great earth spirit having gone unfound in their earlier visit to give their concerns about Bloom, but made up for that by moving to scoop his daughter into a big hug the moment he saw her. Dad, come on. I can't help it. I feel like I only see you when there's an emergency now, so let me enjoy finding you while you're passing through. You were just passing through, right? He asked, fully prepared for some new surprise after what they'd brought with both Mora and Bloom the last time they saw him, with Ben being the one to answer. Not a disaster, but a small question. I'm sure you heard about the soul modifying going on, seeing as how it happened in Analia, and I'm sure you know I'm the one doing it, but no spirits or other mana-based life attempted to get it done. Considering that you guys can't grow your attributes by yourselves, I honestly would have expected more interest. Any interest, really. An understandable curiosity. Abris nodded as he set his daughter down. One we were planning on discussing with you when we got the chance. To be honest, there's 3 reasons we asked the regular spirits not to participate and why the fairies or elementals didn't join in either. Okay. The first is that since we can't grow ourselves, we have our worries that modifying our souls might leave some unexpected consequences. We may be made of mana, but considering the soul is where it's housed, it would be just as accurate to say we are souls, and there's no way to be sure how such a change could affect our overall nature. When we consider that, as slim as it is, there's the fear that a shift of that manner might make us pass on as if we were simple ghosts. In that case, we could run off to test on Vividus and Nox, Thera added helpfully, ignoring the look the comment got from her father. If one passes on, then we could try the other, just to be sure, and if it does work, then it's fine. Okay, and ignoring your daughter's more murdery impulses, it's an interesting concern. While I think the odds on that front are slim, they aren't zero, so they're worth worrying about. What are the second 2? Number 2 is also a matter of our nature. Say it works and there's no obvious downsides, so all of the spirits have it done. If, one day down the line, their great spirit dies, the change is of a nature that would keep the regular spirits from merging into a new great one. That would be a disaster for our race. Okay, definitely a concern, but one I believe Mora should be able to let us know if it's a justified worry or not after watching a single spirit have their soul modified. What's the third then? Less of a worry than a consideration. If you can modify our souls without causing any long-term harm to us, then this is still our one chance to grow beyond our natural limits. When viewed through that lens, we'd prefer that any spirit would wait until you became more powerful than you currently are. He'd only been able to test doing up to 3 modifications on a soul, and while it seemed the manner in which he'd do it would allow for those 3 to be done and succeed, it appeared there was a longer and longer recovery time between each one, with no way of knowing both how that would apply to any spirits or if there was an insurmountable upper limit to the modification that could be done. Even then, Ben wasn't prepared to do more than 2 on the various people of the world, for the amount of pain a third seemed like it would still inflict, but while that would potentially add a decent amount of power to any regular spirit in their eternal lives, if they'd only wait, then it could get better too. And there's not many ways to verify any of this without trying it first to see what would come of it. But even if it's slim, there might be one option to consider. Okay, in that case, you all don't worship any gods, right? That seems like a bit of a shift in topic, but no. Why? Alright, not to be too blunt, but people from every race are going to die when the 3rd wave comes. I'm willing to assume spirits will be no different. We had losses during the 2nd as well. More in the next is unavoidable. Alright, I don't know what your relationship with religion is like, but Myriad can absorb the souls of his believers when they die if they so choose to join him. If any spirits were curious, if they decided to worship him and happened to die in the next wave, then there'd at least be some sort of answer that might be gleaned about what would happen when a spirit soul is joined to another one. Of course, I get this is probably a bit of a morbid topic, and obviously that's far from the ideal way of answering those questions, but unless your people are against giving faith and prayer, it's an option. MMH, an interesting one, but not one that's going to see much success. Myself and the rest of the great spirits have a complicated relationship with the gods of this world, but as for the smaller ones, I'd say it's impossible. Nothing can make them consider their great ones below another. Fair. I guess I can't imagine that either. Okay then, if you all ever want to test, then just let me know, but otherwise I'll drop it. Even if it was a curiosity he couldn't explore, he understood the Great Spirit's concerns, and seeing as how he still wasn't managing to do any soul modification in an optimal way, given the pain involved when compared against the 2 other examples he knew that could take in new souls, it could be something that could be pushed to a farther future so long as he lived to see it. The moment they stepped through the gate and back to the shop, it felt good to be home, even if it hadn't actually been too long since he'd been there. By virtue of his mini-gate network in the guild itself, Stonewall had been one of the meet-up points for soul modification, even if they'd done their best to make that stop even quicker than most. They flew over the gathered crowd in a flash and left before there was a chance for anyone to focus on them, if only to attempt to preserve what small bit of peace Ben and Thera both hoped to keep for themselves when making their way through town. Of course, since I made everyone believe I'd reached the 3rd tier even before I actually managed it, not sure how much of that I have left, he admitted to himself as they walked down the streets to their only stop before grabbing Mora, feeling eyes still falling on him as they went before arriving at the church to see the demi-demons gathered there. Following their previous religious gathering, they were the group that had the largest success dealing with the way he trained his god's believers, with many of them making it to the 9th level of Connect, only not being pushed beyond that final barrier by virtue of his intent to modify souls, and now that he'd done it, it was time for them to get even more. They might not have had the soul mages to boost the effects they'd get for it by that point, but as nice as that extra bonus could be on top of everything else, the changes to them were already great enough, and he could feel enough subtle impatience to know that they didn't want to wait even longer, even if none of them would have ever dared to voice it. "Hello, everyone," he greeted as he got there, giving them a smile when he arrived and nodding in Toltho's direction in particular. "As promised, here to help you out even more. I'm not going to lie to you, this isn't exactly going to be pleasant, but the payoff is going to be more than worth it, so sit tight as we repeat what got you all your last levels before, if in a slightly more extreme way." With the warning given, he reached out to connect to them all and felt them connect back through the pathway his expanded soul created, giving each of them different configurations of his mind under a modified perception of time as, one by one, they awakened Connect. Some took longer than others, leading to different flashes of mana lighting the church as the minutes passed by, but that wasn't what pulled the majority of his attention. No, it was the fact that, by the time they had all succeeded, All of them had gained a bonus mind skill that he had held before. Mental expansion, parallel thought, complex mind, and focus. Every one of the demidemons acquired one of those skills, making the cause undeniable. Unlike any other awakening he participated in, something about how he would help others with Connect in particular left his mark on them. With a small hint of jealousy to go with it. Normally, there were 1 in 10 odds of getting a bonus skill when awakening, yet here he was, making sure everyone he helped out gained one with certainty, with no idea as to why. Was it the strain he had to put on a mind to do it? There was no denying that even with his new level of mental power and control, it was a burden on them, forcing them to sit in the pews while he handed out water and Thera cast out healing spells to ease the pain it had brought. But what if it was something different instead? The touch of his soul against theirs, linked through that shared skill? If that was the case, then it might have explained how the skill had grown too, getting the name of Advanced Connect just like Valeria, Nadi, and Zilly, despite the fact that many of the demidemons weren't enchanters. They used it differently, so it should have grown differently, yet it was consistent when awakened under his touch, creating another point of curiosity. And one more thing I'd love to research if I only had the time, he sighed to himself. I guess this can be added to the long list of subjects to look into, assuming the world doesn't end and I don't die. Once the demis were better though, he could see them react to the change. Flexing muscles that had already been empowered a few days prior and feeling their mana pools grow, a benefit for the healers among them, in particular for the work they do in the greater area, leaving Ben satisfied with the result. Unauthorized usage. This tale is on Amazon without the author's consent. Report any sightings. So what do you think? On the awakened to non-awakened believer ratio, you've got to be sitting near the top by this point. Yeah, you are pretty lucky to have me, aren't you? While they continued on their back and forth, Toltho joined him, giving a polite nod as he did. You only ever do more for us, Ben. I don't know how to thank you. Don't worry about it. Consider this a reward for being excellent believers. If the other demidemons are ever ready to get a bit more practice with Connect so we can try to do the same for them, then I'll be happy to help. But maybe just not this week. It's been a long one, and I personally need a bit of a break from helping people. Then I'll let them know. Surely after they hear of our success, more than a few will come by to at least get their remaining levels. I'll look forward to whoever I get then. And how have things been in Stonewall since the soul modification? Hectic. You'll find that the training grounds are still busier than usual. Everyone's trying to adjust to their new level of power. Sounds like it's led to more than a few levels as well. More mana to practice magic, more strength and stamina to train in combat. It's not going unnoticed. Glad to hear it. That means the same thing should be happening across the entire planet. And out of curiosity, you haven't heard anyone suspecting who's responsible here, have you? It was admittedly going to be discovered eventually. He'd made it more than clear to the rest of the planet that what had happened was thanks entirely to the Church of Myriad, yet he still wanted just a bit of peace in his home, with Toltho cracking a grin. None that I've heard, and you flew by too fast for anyone to get a look. But would it be so bad if they knew? You're going to be a god one day, are you not? I'd assume that more fame would be better. I have more than enough on that front, you can trust me on that. A fair share of infamy too by this point. Really, all I want is a place to come back to that I might get a bit of peace. MMH, I suppose I can see the appeal. We're done. Ben called out as he passed through the gate to Fontesh's home, hearing the sounds of feet running over to them and scooping up both kids when he saw them, spinning them around in plain cheer. Which means, Mora, you get to sleep in your own bed tonight, and Delaire, you get to come back to work tomorrow. Hooray! Delaire yelled, happy to share his enthusiasm, while Mora was more calm about his own cheer, even if it was still there. Hooray is right, Ben told them. And Mora, you were good for Fontesh, right? He was. The Dryad nodded as she joined, watching him play with the kids before Thera swiped Mora from him. And is always a delight to have around. Until next time then, Mora. Thank you, Fontesh. Bye, Delaire. See ya later, Mora. She yelled back as they went back through the gate, leaving Satchel's house to walk home as the boy held both of their hands. So, Thera asked him, what did you get up to while you were staying with them? I distracted Delaire so the other villagers could get work done. A comment that instantly forced Ben to hold back his laughter, even if he largely failed. All right, kiddo. But did you have fun distracting her? I did. We played with the other kids too. I think they've gotten used to me. I'm glad to hear it. Still, sorry we left you so long, Mora. We really weren't expecting it to take so long, Thera added, sounding just as disappointed in herself for leaving the boy with someone else for so many days, even if he didn't seem to mind. It's okay. I had a fun time. Well, good, Ben nodded. But, since we're back, the three of us can enjoy the rest of the night together. I'll get dinner started when we get home, and then we can play something, so think about what you'd want to do. All right? Okay. Fantastic. It really is just so good to be home. That was long and terrible, and if anyone up here is still mad about the whole evil god thing, then I'm going to start living up to the name. Why, hello to you too, Ben. Myriad greeted him as he and Hellori looked up from their work. What has you so unhappy this time? Oh, the same things I was complaining about before. I did so much work and was paid a pittance for it. So if anyone is still unhappy with my existence despite the monumental achievement of what I've done, I'm going to be a touch displeased. There's always going to be people unhappy with your existence, Ben, Hellori told him, shaking her head. Then here I am, a touch displeased. Any chance you'll give me specific names, so I can take it up with them? Absolutely not. Lame. In that case, how are things looking otherwise? Any problems popping up worldwide? Nothing unexpected. The sudden boost in strength is leading people to break things a bit more often than normal as they get used to the change, and similar effects resulting from other attributes too, but in general, everyone in the world who participated is enjoying their new level of power, and those who chose not to are regretting it. Well, anyone regretting it can join when I get to my second round of soul modification in however many months. MMH, it's possible we'll feel a fair bit differently about it by then, Hellori pointed out. Even if not skill-wise, everyone that joined is going to have the attributes worthy of a second tier. While our armies and adventurers are already putting that power to work for the planet, what any common man might do with it is an entire other worry. It's not like that wasn't always going to be a problem, Ben countered. People are always going to abuse the power they get. Case in point, you, Myriad made sure to get in. Not enough to deserve to be called out over it. Either way, yeah, this will undoubtedly be used for crime, but it will also be used to let people protect themselves. Sometimes you've just got to balance risk and reward. On a marginally different note though, any word on if you guys want me helping anyone else with their jobs, because I just finished mine and will happily start a new one if there's no takers. There's always going to be takers, his god told him. Still, it took you a while this time, huh? Considering the fact that I was being flown around for days without my coat, along with a need to manage my mana for the way I was modifying souls, there was no avoiding it. Still, this is going to be great because I'd bet I've got 3 new options. Seems like third-tier skills always give a job, which means I should have 2 there, plus I should have gotten King of Strength in the mix now too. Oh, and since getting 3 Awakened Inclinations unlocked me the job Inclination Master, I wonder if getting 3 authorities would give me an extra third-tier job too. Inclination God has a pretty good ring to it, don't you think? Bonuses to my defensive and multiversal inclination, maybe finally score me those connect and crafting inclinations I crave too. And all at the low cost of figuring out how to get another inclination to the 3rd tier, Myriad pointed out. Considering that by your own admission, it took the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of years for you to do it for the other 2, and that you have no shortcut for your soul affinity, I wouldn't hold my breath. MMH, maybe whenever I materialize Soul 1 trillion, it'll push it over the edge. That's coming up, it could happen. The very notion that you're nearing your trillionth soul is theologically horrifying. It's enough to make me worry that you really are going to somehow draw the eye of some greater god of the multiverse. If there is someone like that and they haven't blinked at the quintillions of lives the demons have slaughtered, then I think I'm fine. Unless there's some sort of system to detect souls that finds more are leaving reality, then there should be. Then I'd go unnoticed, but honestly, even if there is anyone like that, I'll make sure to give them a few choice words before I'm smited. Ugh, you would too. So, anything else then? Ben asked them. Any stupid new problem or new fuss being raised up there that's going to end with me having to argue for my existence again? The last one wasn't really about you arguing for your existence, so much as it was trying to settle some of the other gods' fears and worries, Hellori pointed out. Yeah, and I noticed that when I make gods afraid and worried, the go-to solution is wanting me dead. There's nothing, so don't worry so much, Myriad told him. I feel like worrying about the fact that the beings who technically rule the world want me dead is both a normal and appropriate response to my life. And yet, currently not important. Since you've finally got that job done, I'll let Fixed know. He should have people on standby for you, so we can get your next ones started now if you're ready for them. Yeah. Sure then, let's get this over with. On the same pier as the last time, Ben looked at everyone he was with, examining their souls for the changes they held. Each person had a modified soul, and he remembered all of them, the nature of his mind making it easy despite the millions he'd assisted, and it allowed him to see what growth they'd gotten since then too. Either as a result of the knowledge he'd given then, the training and practice they'd been able to pull off thanks to their newly grown attributes, or the few hours they'd been under the effects of his authorities, all of them seemed to have leveled since then, leaving Ben satisfied to witness that some had continued to benefit from his help and left him to reapply the effects of his authorities to them before they began, in the hopes that it would lend results for whatever new jobs they would take when he was done with them before getting to the task at hand. Available jobs: Craftsman, Alchemy Path Craftsman, Artistic Path Craftsman, Blacksmith Path Craftsman, Cooking Path Craftsman, Stonecrafts Path Craftsman, Sewing Path Mathematician Beginner, Puppeteer Cycler and Trident Surtrap Master Destruction God King of Strength Evil God. God. How long has it been since my job list has looked so short and manageable? He wondered to himself. So many complicated feelings here. It's nice that I've gotten so many done, but I just want more. For now, 3 great new options, so let's kick things off with Trap Master to see what that gets me. Acquired job Trap Master LV0. Major bonuses granted to improving strength, stamina, and intelligence. All trap skills will receive a major growth bonus. Max level of the Trap Master job achieved. Fantastic, and that yielded me only one advanced variant, the Sacrilege aligned one. Fine, whatever, I'll take it. Give me Immoral Trap User. Acquired job, Immoral Trap User LV0. Major bonuses granted to improving all attributes. All trap and sacrilegious skills will receive a major growth bonus. Max level of the Immoral Trap User job achieved. He couldn't deny the bit of disappointment in his heart that the master job had only left him with a single new option, but it was still major bonuses to all of his attributes. Something that always felt good to get in the end as he moved past it to make his next choice. King of Strength. Acquired job, King of Strength LV0. Massive bonuses granted to improving strength. Strength enhancement level increased. Max level of the King of Strength job achieved. And now I just need agility to finish off all of the King jobs. Not that that's anywhere close to happening. Unless I get some massive and unexpected growth in those areas, even a few more third-tier awakenings won't get me there. Oh well, I'm helping 6 groups total, so since I have one more before I get to my big ones, let's mix things up by taking Cycler just for funsies. Acquired job, Cycler LV0. Bonuses granted to improving strength, stamina, and agility. All cycling skills will receive a growth bonus. Cycling level increased. Max level of the cycling job achieved. Yeah, should have seen those agility bonuses coming. No new job after it either from the looks of things, but whatever, now I can get to the ones that matter. I think I'd prefer you didn't. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people up there feel the same. Anyway, I'm taking Evil God. Acquired job, Evil God LV0. All evil skills will receive a divine growth bonus. Evil authority level increased. Vitality enhancement level increased. Vitality recovery rate enhancement level increased. Mana enhancement level increased. Mana recovery rate enhancement level increased. Stamina enhancement level increased. Multiversal inclination level increased. Alien sense level increased. Acquired skill Evil Thought level 0. Wow, I absolutely hated that. Not gonna lie, my feelings are a bit mixed too. As cool as it is getting more divine bonuses, the fact I'm not getting any attribute bonuses for this hurts more than a little. On the plus side, since Destruction God is likely going to be the same, what do you think the odds are that it will push my material manipulation to the third tier? It is going to be under my World Killer bonuses too after all, plus everything else I've got going to it. I think there's a chance. Ben, if you get a new third tier skill after just revealing the last two you'd gotten, then you're going to cause a panic up here. Well, considering my goal is to reach the third tier once more anyway before the next wave starts, it feels pretty safe to say I'm going to cause a panic regardless. Still, it or my connect won't awaken into anything morally objectionable, probably, maybe, so there should be nothing to complain about, right? I assure you, others will not be seeing it that way, especially when word gets out that you just leveled your evil authority. Yeah, but it took forever, it's probably fine. Less than 2 weeks is the opposite of forever. Unauthorized duplication. This narrative has been taken without consent. Report sightings. Well, they already know I have them and that I've been leveling my sacrilege. They should all be emotionally prepared for my authorities to grow too. Really, I wouldn't let it get to you. For now, on to the next. Looks like in skill, title, and now job, I'm going to be a Destruction God. Acquired job. Destruction God LV0. Destruction authority level increased. All destructive skills will receive a divine growth bonus. Unending extraction enhancement level increased. Deep material sense level increased. Defense inclination level increased. Bludgeoning resistance level increased. Flesh regeneration level increased. Fracture resistance level increased. Unnatural mortal realm actualization enhancement level increased. Soul regeneration enhancement level increased. Acquired skill destructive thought level 0. Name, Ben Hef. Race human. Titles: Apostle of Myriad, the Forgotten One, Miracle Maker, Skill Learner, Enemy of Aneth, Trial Defier, Trial Breaker, Godslayer, Monster, Madman, God Killer, Threat, the Mad Apostle, Destined Holder of Connect, God of Destruction, Creator of Life, Awakener, Maniac, Brutal Blacksmith, Defier of Gods, Title Holder, Enemy of Valencia, Great Teacher, Student of Helori, Myriad's Monster, Outsider Slayer, Demigod Slayer, Transgressor, Destined Holder of Mental Symbiosis, Destined God of Alien Thought Structure, Destined Holder of Soul Production, Job Holder, Destined Holder of Actualization, Enemy of Duna, Demon Slayer, World Slayer, Demigod of Growth and Gain, First Human God, First of the Faith, Record Breaker, Psychopath. Jobs: Destruction God, LV99. Previous jobs: Apprentice Craftsman, Craftsman, Priest, Enchanter, Mind User, Magic Item Maker, Magic Weapon Maker, High Enchanter, Fractured Mind User, Tree Tamer, High Craftsman, Apprentice Mage, True Mage, Tank, Heretic, Adventurer, Divine Heretic, Kin, Master Craftsman, Master Enchanter, Scholar, Connected Enchanter, Infernal Craftsman, Marksman, Destruction Mage, Material Mage, High Material Mage, Profane Enchanter, Master Material Mage, Impious Creator, Mind Master, Master Adventurer, Otherworldly Craftsman, Material Creator, Master of All, Ritual Enchanter, Holy Craftsman, Cursed Item Maker, Actualizer, Summoned Enchanter, Destructive Craftsman, Soul Mage, Freak Mind User, Unholy Thinker, Polymath, Alien Mind, Soul User, Soul Master, Evil Soul User, Soul Defiling Gardener, High Actualizer, World Killer, Connect Master, Abysmal Connector, Master of Destiny, Hive Brain, Divine Enchanter, Inclination Master, Slayer, Judge, Holy Adversary, Title Master, Beneficiary, Divine Kin, Multiversal Material Mage, Expert, Body User, High Tank, King of Intelligence, Body Master, Master Tank, Primordial Heretic, God-Defiling Gardener, Master Actualizer, Outsider, High Marksman, Fallen Actualizer, King of Mana, King of Stamina, King of Vitality, Intelligence Embodiment, Soul Creator, Mind Breaker, Total Self, Degenerate Body User, demonic body user, divine body user, foul tank, resistant tank, high destruction mage, mortal realm actualizer, beginner dancer, assassin, therapist, trap user, eldritch mind user, trap master, immoral trap user, king of strength, cycler, evil god. Attributes. Vitality, 17653 vitality recovery rate, 974/HR mana, 47724 mana recovery rate, 5504/min strength, 13979 agility, 5334 stamina, 29698 intelligence, 270, 639 affinities, light, 3 life, 2 fire, 4 water, 3 air, 4 earth, 2 death, 3 dark, 1 space, 4 time, 5 resistances, light, 68 life, 72 fire, 75 water, 69 air, 66 earth, 81 death, 78 dark, 85 space, 63 time, 61. Blessed skills. Unending crafting LV9 * divine enchanting LV9 * eldritch mind LV0 **. Passive skills. Evil god of sacrilege LV3 **. Bind integrated demonic body LV9 divine defense enhancement LV0 **. Perfect absorption resistance LV1 **. All affinity resistance enhancement LV9 bite enhancement LV9 piercing resistance LV9 artisans soul * unnatural intelligence enhancement LV9 * blood regeneration. LV9 Unending Extraction Enhancement LV3 * Soul Affinity LV9 * Tier 2 Modifier Compatibility * Deep Material Sense LV4 * Flavor Enhancement LV6 Balance Enhancement LV8 Soul Expansion LV9 Defiler of Ambrosia Destruction Authority LV1 * Evil Authority LV1 * Soul Resilience LV9 Defense Inclination LV8 Vitality Enhancement LV6 Vitality Recovery Rate Enhancement LV6 False Ben Integrated Divine Body LV9 Mithril Blood Mana Enhancement LV6 Mana Recovery Rate Enhancement LV6 Strength Enhancement LV5 Stamina Enhancement LV5 Bludgeoning Resistance LV4 Agility Enhancement LV2 Flesh Regeneration LV3 Fracture Resistance LV3 Unnatural Mortal Realm Actualization Enhancement LV3 * Multiversal Inclination LV6 Alien Sense LV3 Soul Regeneration Enhancement LV6 Destructive Touch Evil Touch Empty Soul Active Skills Stealth LV2 Deep Connection LV9 * Cycling LV4 Marksmanship LV9 Material Manipulation LV9 * Swimming LV3 Dance LV3 Hive Mind LV9 * Rule Bender LV1 Aim LV9 Esoteric Actualization LV9 * Soul Source LV9 * Condemnation LV9 Mind Break LV9 * Realm Access LV9 Calming LV9 Evil Thought LV0 Destructive Thought LV0 Blessings Myriads Blessing Analias Blessing Hiloris Blessing Galwaxes Blessing Elvits Mana Regeneration Blessing Anethas Blessing Earth Pantheons Blessing Life Pantheons Blessing Dark Pantheons Blessing Alencias Blessing Nairs Blessing Yuzus Mana Regeneration Blessing Child of Chaos Owns Blessing Fixthas Blessing Passive Pantheons Blessing Dunas Blessing Jagals Blessing Non-Affinitied Pantheons Blessing Crafting Pantheons Blessing Velmets Blessing Trials Trial of Analia and Talona Trial of the Dead God Earth Tower Life Tower Dark Tower Non-Affinity Tower Craftsman's Tower. Oh, and you leveled the other one too. Myriad said, the sarcasm thick in his voice. How lovely for you. It is pretty nice, isn't it? I would have felt uneven if it didn't work out that way. All in all, I'd say that even went pretty dang well for me too, don't you think? And now I'm officially done with jobs. By my count, you have 10 left. Yes, okay, fine. They're all Tier 1, and I plan on keeping the path jobs in case there's ever anyone I personally want to help raise with them, but if you guys find another 3 groups you want me helping in the future, then I will. Other than that, I'll still be checking my crystal occasionally if anything interesting pops up, so I'll let you know if it does, and then you guys can work on making me a new party when the time comes. I notice you left one job unaccounted for. Yeah, because I'm never, ever taking Atre. Why would I take a job that, by all appearances, is only going to raise my flavor enhancement? I should be trying to become less delicious, not more. In fairness, I'd assume it would give bonuses to some of your other skills too. Blood regeneration, flesh regeneration, really just anything that could stretch out the meal. Terrible way of putting it. Pass. I'm still betting on you getting curious about it eventually, but fine. In that case, what about your new skills? I'll reserve my judgment on the names until we know what they do, but the fact that they seem to be of the same type is interesting. Yeah, looks like all it took for me to finally get some evil and destructive skills was to take the jobs, level up the authorities, and gain the touch skills first. Just look at me. Such a good and morally upright guy that there's barely anything evil or destructive for me to gain. I heard the trap job you took. Moral is even more of a stretch now than it was before. We're ignoring that bit, it's just the system's naming sense. Sure, whatever you say. So, any idea about what your new skills might do? Not sure, give me a second. Evil thought level increased. Destructive thought level increased. 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 Yes. Do you enjoy making me regret asking you questions? It has its charms. You want to know or not? Obviously. Just tell me already. Alright, from practicing on Harrow, it seems like it does two things, although the second seems more like a side effect of the first rather than the skill's intent. It lets me provoke an evil or destructive mood in the person I'm connected to, and it lets me more easily find evil and destructive memories in a target's mind, with the ability to bring them to the front of their thoughts and amplify the feelings they cause. It doesn't seem like I can cause this effect through mana either, so it's definitely a Connect-derived skill. Well, a Connect, Soul, and Hive Mind-derived skill if we're being super specific, although I guess Hive Mind was already dependent on Connect, and Connect is partially a Soul skill. And none of that matters because not only would both be super illegal to use everywhere, unlike plenty of other mind control type skills, I cannot see a single positive application of them. I mean, more easily honing in on evil and destructive memories could have positive applications. Sure, but you just described them as side benefits. I'm clearly referring to their main purpose. Okay, sure, yeah, but don't worry. I won't be making people more evil or destructive, unless I can safely pair the two to let anyone gain better effects while under the power of my authorities. No, we'll put that idea in the maybe pile for now. Anyway, don't worry about it. The only practice with it I'm gonna get is on whatever god I've got strapped to my arm at the time. But why though? At this point, I'm addicted to trying to awaken my skills. Even without the attribute bonuses, it just feels so good. Also, in case awakening them comes with any handy benefits. Don't worry, it's just going to be something I try in the background to split up millennia of sacrilege and authority training. Ugh, empty skies, fine. So what are you going to do now? Now? Myriad, for the first time in ages, I've got no tasks from the gods to work through, and sure, even if I have my personal projects, nobody's going to bother me about anything. I'm going to do whatever I feel like. Unnatural mortal realm actualization enhancement level increased. Only a week back from what had seemed like the incredibly dull task of helping carry Ben through his days and days of work, and Thera already missed it. Sure, it had been hours of long, boring work constantly with nothing to do other than ferry people around, and it had only felt longer thanks to the circlet she'd worn the entire time. But at the very least it had been different. With it done though, she was back to what felt like had been taking up all of her time since the second wave ended. Healing people who were still being ferried to the various hospitals across the gate network. A task which, thankfully, only grew easier with time. There were a few more awakened light and life mages than when that wave had ended, and everyone's level was getting higher too. The healers had almost all had their souls modified to grant them more power, and all of them wore both mana and buff bracelets as well to keep them going. Add in the constant work both adventurers and armies, who'd received those same benefits, were doing across the globe to clear out what demons there were invading the lands, and even if the work wasn't close to ending, and even if truly dreadful amounts of patience could still be dragged in during bad days, in general there was improvement. Even if it doesn't always feel like it, Thera told herself as she suffered through one of the bad days, her mana passively flooding the building to give all of the other healers an easier time while she went bed to bed, fixing what wounds she found. "You, stop screaming and let go of that arm already. It's clearly too late for it," she told one soldier holding onto his severed limb as his wails only amplified her growing headache before she remembered to mention the part that would actually matter to him. "Which doesn't matter because I'll be growing you a new one. So stop struggling already and let me treat you." "Bedside manners, Thera," a different healer mentioned beside her while they worked on their own patient. Too focused on their own work to notice as she forcefully held her own down with her magic, but not needing to guess that was what was happening after so much time working together. "Bedside manners are for patients who don't make this job harder," she said back once her patient wasn't flailing around and, oh so, subtly breaking the law, used her dark magic to not only ease his pain while she worked but also calmed his mind. A benign enough application of the branch that could still have troubling enough uses for it to be covered by many broader international laws that had to do with controlling another person's mind that she'd found herself caring less and less about when those same laws would get in the way of how efficiently she could treat a patient, getting a notification going off in her head as she did. Spiritual dark magic level increased. MMH, going to tell myself that didn't just happen because Ben's been putting his authorities on me. Considering that she herself couldn't help but view doing such things as somewhat evil even then, it was hard to believe it hadn't had any effect, but it didn't matter. With that patient done, she gave some quick orders about the sorts of meals he'd need to eat in the next week to try and compensate for how she'd made his body cannibalize itself for the treatment before basically throwing him out, the spirits that surrounded her having their own commentary. "Ungrateful. Rude. Enjoyed our princess's magic without even a thanks." "It's fine," she told them all back. "Plenty of people don't have the presence of mind for that sort of thing when they're bleeding out. I wasn't exactly polite either." She could see the swarm around her playing their little parts as well, light, life, and blessing spirits healing wounds that seemed to interest them and time spirits slowing the effects of injuries down when they seemed bad enough, while other affinities occasionally applying what useful effects they could, no matter how esoteric they might be. For the new combined affinity spirits especially, seeing their growth had been interesting. Unlike other spirits who'd had eons with their powers, she and the rest got to watch as the new ones fumbled around and figured out the limits of what they were, arriving at their answers surprisingly fast. Even if it was new to them, it was also what they were, magic itself, and it came naturally to them in a way incomparable to any creature of flesh. Combine that with whatever knowledge Ben had bestowed them with in their inception, and each one had the foundation needed for their new natures to blossom. "With only one I need to be worrying about," Thera told herself as she glanced Mora's way between patients, politely off to the side and out of the way of the chaos filling the room to read one of the many books Ben had made him, acting like he wasn't distracted at all, even with a different soul spirit whispering in her ear about the magics he was applying to the various healers as they worked. Despite the best efforts of the staff, hospitals weren't always the cleanest places, least of all during such times of chaos where cleaning up whatever fluids leaking out of a person had to take priority behind healing the line of them in need, but she had seen him react poorly enough to the smell of it from time to time, even if they'd only ever had to leave early from it the once, that she didn't want to ignore any needs he might have had, even if it just meant getting a few of the smaller spirits to watch him while he stepped outside. If you encounter this tale on Amazon, note that it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. It seemed he was growing used to his current body, though. A small frown on his face that could have just as easily been mistaken for something in his reading materials. It seemed that everything around them was within the manageable range, at least at the moment. As his guardian, though, she couldn't help but continue to check between patients, just wanting him to be all right. Still, all of the gore he sees coming here with me, I never would have guessed it would be smells he'd struggle so much with. It had been surprising enough when she'd learned it, but even with that little worry still nagging her, she couldn't let it distract her. A quick glance making sure he was okay was all that could be spared with a new patient being rushed to her section and even more clearly waiting behind them, demanding her attention as the day ticked on. Life sense level increased. "Thera, could I take a moment of your time in private?" The hospital's director called for her the moment things had calmed down, looking worn out and conflicted and leaving Thera to wonder just what she was going to have to deal with. "Perhaps bring Mora along with you too." All right, Mora. Come on. She let the two of them be led to the other woman's office where her mask slipped just a bit more, leaving Thera to wonder just what exactly she would be dealing with that could have the other looking like that before getting her answer. We'd like to reduce your time helping out at all of the hospitals you work at to twice a week. Pardon? She asked, not knowing what she'd been expecting, but certainly not that. Is there some sort of issue with what I've been doing? No, gods above, no. It's a complicated situation, and none of the places you're helping at are exactly pleased with this, but it simply comes down to time and practice. With the combination of strength that so many healers across the world were able to get and the new tools at our disposal, they have the power to do significantly more work, leaving the only area they can improve on, an area we admittedly all want them improving on before the next wave, being skill. An area that, unfortunately, they aren't going to find themselves pushed on when you're already doing most of the work. I understand that as a great healer, this must be difficult to hear, but when we look at the long term, we can't just be depending on you. We need to use the benefits we've gotten to try and make sure the rest can grow as much as possible, hopefully even awaken a few more if we can too. I understand, Thera nodded, trying to keep a neutral expression. In that case, if you have my new schedule for me, then I'll take it, but otherwise, I assume the fact that I'm being told this means I should finish up here today? If you don't mind, the other nodded, apology thick in her voice. Of course not. I understand the value in others growing more while they can. In that case, I suppose I'll be back to it in a few days. Come on, Mora. Let's head home. She took the boy's hand and led him out, keeping her face under control as they walked down the street and through the gate network on their way back home, only pausing once she was sure that nobody who might have seen her leave the hospital would be around before finally dropping her facade. A bright smile left to stretch across her face while it took everything in her to keep from jumping for joy, finally getting a bit of a break back after so long that was easily picked up on by the child beside her. Thera? Oh, don't mind me, Mora. I'm just a little emotional knowing I officially get days off again. This feels like the best news I've ever gotten. But do me a favor and don't mention I said that when I go in again. Isn't this a bad thing, though? He asked her, dampening her smile with his innocence. If you're not there, more people will probably die. It was an undeniable fact that her presence was frequently the difference between life and death in the places she went, even with all of the benefits other healers had managed to be given since then, and from that perspective, perhaps it was wrong for her to be excited about participating less in the coming months. Hell, it even had other, more specific negatives to go with it. While they'd be getting more practice, they'd be reducing their access to Mora, even if none of them knew they were enjoying the benefits of a great soul spirit. Though that could be managed by creating more regular soul spirits and asking them as their princess to stand watch over different hospitals across the world and help the healers that were working. The idea forcing her to make a mental note to do exactly that later. But there was also a more personal drawback. No matter how improbable she thought it was, she was the holder of a 9th-leveled life magic, and for it, Ben and more than a few of the gods held hopes that she might reach the level of a soul mage in the time they had left. A goal that would only become harder if she didn't have the constant practice she'd been getting to go with it to chip away at the barrier to it. And yet, how much of a difference could it really have been making, anyway? She wasn't her boyfriend, even if she had her hopes of getting to that level at some point in her long life. Doing it so soon seemed impossible. Sure, reducing hospital time would lower the odds, and yet, she struggled to believe that continuing to go as she had been would have made such an impossible dream a reality. But none of that would address the boy's concerns. So instead Thera crouched down to look him in the eyes, trying to find something to say that wasn't focused entirely on her own desire for a break. I know, but you heard what the director said, right? She's not wrong. Everyone is way stronger now than they were. Now they just need their skills to improve to go with it so that even less people will have to die in the future. I know that seems bad, but unfortunately, these are the sorts of choices that adults have to make sometimes. But even if we're there less, that doesn't mean we can't make things easier for them in our own way, even if we aren't around. Can we? Well, since a certain little great spirit isn't going to be nearby to help as often, I'll talk to the other soul spirits later if you could try and help gather them for me. We'll raise their numbers a bit more and ask them if a few could be stationed around different hospitals and clinics at all times to try and help raise up the healers they see. Even if they're not going to be as good at it as you, if they're there constantly while any healers are working harder, They'll be sure to see results soon, and the more results they get, the better everyone else will be for it. Sound good? Sounds good. Mora nodded. Great, then for now let's get home. We can surprise Ben and Dallaire since we're going to be back so early. What exactly is going on here? Thera asked as she and Mora came through a gate. Getting to the shop and getting to see Ben lying face down on the floor when they did, even with other Bens still hard at work around him. Did you really get one of your clones killed and couldn't even be bothered to clean it up? This is the real one and I'm not dead, he said, face pressed against the floor. Just understimulated. Taking the lack of chores that hard still? MMH, I don't want any more stupid work from the stupid gods, but I'm hitting different walls in different projects that I won't be able to start getting past until I get some experimental results back from my research center or the Gray, which means my usually busy mind is feeling pretty empty. I'm only thinking half as much as usual. That's probably more than the rest of the world combined by this point, Ben. So what exactly is lying on the floor helping with? Just something to do while I try to think of other things. As things are, for fun I've been trying to translate every conversation I've ever had and every piece of media I've ever consumed into every other language I know, including a bunch I was able to learn from the Gray from the broader multiverse, which I believe let me find a few minor translation errors I'm going to have to talk to them about. Since that also means I'm now going over every book I've read at the Magic Towers again too. I'm further refining and categorizing ideas I've read there. Genuinely, I think I could condense it down significantly, which I kind of already did with the books I wrote and donated a while ago, but those really just had the heart of what matters for a bunch of concepts. If I was doing it broader while covering every topic the library held, then I feel like I could do better while keeping it to a few shelves, so maybe that will be something to send to Killy and the Mages Guild and to set up in the different churches of Myriad. I've also been inventing some new spells for funsies, even if I can't cast any of them. I feel like I need to worry most about that last bit. I wouldn't too much. What are they then? He materialized a thick book into her hands, the title being the first thing she commented on even before opening in. Ben's big book of unethical spells? Really? I thought it had a good ring to it. If we're going to see Jake tomorrow to check on my last few awakenings to finish, then I'll force him to try a few for me then. There had been a handful of people at their 7th levels who'd gotten his help near enough to the end of his soul modifying that he'd been willing to go back after that week, so they could practice in the hopes of reaching the 8th, but as far as he was concerned, that last journey was the end of it. It could take the day, but anyone who hadn't reached the level to awaken by then could instead get the benefits when he'd do one last mass awakening just before the start of the next wave. With Thera's focus moving to the pages she held as she flipped through the book. I feel like if the gods got to see it, this entire book would instantly become illegal. That would be a little harsh. Plenty of those spells are purely hypothetical. There's no way to know if they'd actually work until they were tried. Plasmification. Oh, you spotted a good one. In theory, there's no reason there shouldn't be versions of petrification for different affinities of magic, even if it seems like different ones are going to have different strengths and weaknesses. The horrors that might come with reversing them for one. Icification is the water one, for example, but I don't think you need me to explain what might happen if it was reversed if you let them melt a bit first. For the sake of keeping my lunch, I'd prefer you didn't. Ha, fair. So plasmification is the fire affinities version. Only the mana cost is going to be insane and the results a little horrifying. Cataclysmic, Ben corrected. Converting a body's worth of matter directly into energy is the sort of thing that would leave a sizable crater anywhere it's done. Think about the results of me making antimatter only on the scale of a person. Yeah, this book should definitely be illegal. Well, it would take an awakened life and fire mage that holds over 30,000 points of mana to do it, so I personally wouldn't worry too much. Of all the possible petrification variants, it's the least possible by far. As for the others, I won't be able to test until tomorrow. But, wait, no, a handy person just entered my connect range, so we can try a couple things out today. Okay, kids, who's ready for a field trip?
Epsilon.
Before anyone answered, Ben was already opening the door with his magic before Sakhel on the other side could knock on it, surprising her as he did. Sorry, am I interrupting? She asked, suspecting it was so from what just happened. Since I was walking by, I thought I'd check on how Dallaire's doing, but dash. She's doing great and you've made perfect timing. Ben told her, putting his clones away and getting up to pick up the kids. Come on and help me out with something. All right. What? Gonna teach you some experimental new spells. Ben, I feel like this is going to traumatize the children. Thera sighed when they got out to the training grounds, flipping through his spell book the entire way there to see what other horrors it held. There's something wrong with your imagination. Mora's been seeing everyone dragged into the hospital with you each day, and I had to actively stop Delaire from watching Abel transform. Compared to that, everything I might do here is going to be fine. Now, as for test subjects, you up for making some cloned Bens? And this feels weird too, Thera told him, shaking her head even as she gave in. Raising some dirt up, she made a knife to take his blood before changing its nature so it would start to feed. Ben producing meat with his magic to grow them away from the eyes of the others and clothing them before he brought them out, for new homunculi ready to be used. Perfect, he laughed, overall thrilled to have them before he and the new constructs focused on Sakhel. Then for now, I'm going to teach you a couple of new spells. One you're probably going to need my help with, but we'll make this work. So for now, can you cast icification on this one? I don't think I like that I know the spell now, she answered, also thinking about the logical implication of what would happen once it started to melt. Just once, and if you don't like it, you'll never have to do it again. Please, you're the only person I can ask today. How long until you could ask someone else? Tomorrow, but there's a few new plant spells in the mix too. It's not like you'll get nothing from it. Fine. Even the water life spell she was being asked to cast first would do something for her, given her current magic had grown from those two affinities along with earth. She had her focus and was interested in getting to it. Casting the spell, Ben wanted first to turn one of the Bens into an ice sculpture, with everyone looking at it once she did. If you stumble upon this tale on Amazon, it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. All right? He nodded. In that case, let's leave this one off to the side and see what it looks like after it melts a bit. You can look at that in private, Thera told him. Even if you want to see it, I don't, and we're absolutely not letting the kids see, no matter how good they are at taking these things. Why not? Delaire asked with big, begging eyes, holding plenty of her own curiosity on the topic that Thera was more than fine with denying. Because if it turns out you're not fine with it, I don't want to have to talk to your mom about how Ben traumatized you. Ben? Sorry, kiddo, but I actually agree with Thera. For my eyes only. Plus Sakhel, since she's going to need to be the one to undo it. Great, the Oracle said dryly, having as much desire to see the results as Thera when they felt disturbingly predictable. In that case, what next? Next is a spell I'm lovingly calling Plantification. I'll have to let you use my mind to do it, but with your current mana pool, it should be possible to pull off otherwise, so on to clone number 2. He linked to her as he said it, directing the eyes of the other three to that particular Ben as Sakhel began to cast. The magic she held burning thousands of points of mana and nearly emptying her pool by the time she was done as the body before them was remade. Flesh turned to wood and bark as it was converted to match the biology of the Dryad seed Ben could materialize, leaving him to look it over in detail. Man, if I could ever get life magic for myself, then I'd be able to do this with my material manipulation, he thought with a sigh. Hell, I'd be able to convert any living thing into any other bit of matter. Absolutely tragic that I can't. As much as he enjoyed the fact that he'd not only been able to gain magics since coming to the world after thinking he'd never get anything more than his enchanting and gaining both rare and previously non-existent magics at that, looking at what other options could do left him feeling the limits of their potential. As exciting as Soul Source was and all of the applications of it he could find, ultimately it could only create souls. Same for material manipulation, he was making the most of it, but in the end, it would only create and manipulate materials. So maybe I should take a page out of my apprentice's book. It's not something I can focus on right now, but if I live then I could try gaining 4 new non-affinitied options and awaken them into a proper non-affinitied magic too. Then, no matter how hard or obscure the spell, I'd be able to do anything. Okay, yeah, that's going somewhere on the to-do list. A future consideration that had no place in his current experimentation. He instead focused back on Sakhel, filling her soul with mana. Alright, and now that it's a plant, Let's use some normal plant spells to grow this into as large of a tree as possible. I'll cover the mana so you're free to go wild. Okay? All right, Sakhel agreed, having a sneaking fear of where that was going to lead as she did as he asked, watching as the bend-shaped plant took root and grew up and out, sprouting branches and leaves and making its original shape almost unrecognizable in comparison, with only a vaguely human form hidden within it, looking more like a coincidence of nature rather than a result of those magics, leaving Ben satisfied when he saw it. Great! This is some fantastic work. Now let's just undo that plantification. Somehow I knew this was coming, she muttered, jealous of the kids whose eyes Thera was proactively covering. Even if Dallaire fought against it, with Thera's eyes turned away as well, leaving only Sakhel and Ben to see what the result would be as she started to reverse the spell effects and to her horror saw it work. New branches of wood and leaves being converted back to flesh and leaving a result that looked like the mad experiment of a twisted life mage, with even Ben frowning when he saw it. Okay, you know what? Let's just recast the plantification spell to make this easier to get rid of, preferably before it dies. He'd been able to connect to it when it had been reversed and had managed to be made uncomfortable enough by what he'd found, what had been a copy of his body having been stretched out in the process with new structures added. While there was a shocking lack of pain from that twisted monstrosity, he was able to feel new organs and bones within it, presumably duplicates of what had originally been there, but he wasn't going to dissect it to find out. Worse, though, was that those changes extended to its brain too, creating new ones in different branches and reshaped the one it had originally held that, even though there was no soul housed within, just by the brief connection he could feel it adding to his eldritch mind, incorporating aspects to it the same as any time he connected to a new species. It's almost enough to make me wonder what this thing would become if I put a soul in it, since it doesn't seem like the changes are killing it, but that feels like it might be an ethical line too far. Inflicting such an existence was too much to do to any soul, even the ones he would create himself, so instead he watched as meat and bone changed yet again to wood and leaves, ending the horrors of that particular experiment. Okay, so we can move that into the forest later instead of leaving it here. I feel like burning it to the ground would also be an appropriate option, Thera chimed in, with the small glimpse of it she'd caught too much as it was. And I know I'm going to regret asking this, but are there no spells you want me to test in this? Well, the thing is that any ones I'd get you to test would be pretty unethical, even by my own standards. Like what? Well, Earth is actually fairly limited as an affinity in what it can do. I could teach you some ways to modify petrification to decide which element you could convert living flesh to, but that's pretty harmless. We have different definitions of that. Compared to anything else, at least, life actually has a lot of potential, but as things are, what can be done with the affinity by itself is actually pretty well studied. There's room for some research, of course. I might get around to opening up a new institute to explore a few different ideas in the future if I can, but based purely on known variables, there's nothing that someone else hasn't already explored before. As for dark by itself, again, there isn't much more depth to plunder without doing some more advanced research on the topic to try and determine various underlying effects, which would be all of the harder to do given that magic's complicated legal status across pretty much the entire planet. But as for areas, life and dark meat instead. Okay, so I may have figured out a few different ways to permanently change the way someone thinks instead of just while they're being mind-controlled. Most of those spells involve some degree of restructuring the target's brain, but before he could say more, Thera had turned the spellbook he'd materialized into dust under her power. No, I wasn't going to ask you to do it. It was designed through purely academic curiosity. And it can stay in your head then because I don't want anyone to hear that you know how to do that, and I don't want you writing it down to get out in the future either. Okay, fine, he agreed as he materialized a new book without those offending pages, feeling as it was stared at in his hands. Before you think about publishing anything else in that, have a good long conversation with your god first. Oh, don't worry, this was never really for publishing, just for killing time. The fact that you made this because you were bored is somehow worse. Is it just one more spell now? Yeah, just one more to see if it will work. Sakhel, I'm going to be putting a few complex concepts in your brain, and I'll go through them with you while you cast, so let's get started. Since her magic had grown from water, earth, and life, That meant she still had a strong power over those affinities. Strong enough that she could likely grow a homunculus if she so desired, but what he had in mind was instead something more complicated, a plant variant of it. Taking both Ben's blood and a newly materialized seed, in a similar way to how Thera would make him his clones, he got Sakhel to modify the structure of his blood, but took it a step further by merging it into the seed before dropping it and letting it sprout as the expected bush began to grow, only with pulsing, fleshy bulbs at their ends of its branches. "And it's officially time for the two of you to stop watching again," Thera said as she once more covered Mora and Delaire's eyes as those fleshy fruits continued to grow, developing skeletons and limbs before all too soon. 10 new Ben clones had been made, just waiting to be plucked. "Ben, no offense, but I don't think I want to try any more spells you figure out," Sakhel told him. The sight of a simple bush being used to grow people imprinted in her mind. "That's the last one, you're good. Still, you should consider practicing it a bit more. People who can create homunculi are valuable, and you officially make that list." He'd materialized clothing around them as they grew, but with them finished, he went in to inhabit them, filling their flesh with his soul before pulling away the branches still connected to each one's belly button, flinching a bit for the feeling of it. Still, they'd be usable enough, and more than that, they were a proof of concept, an interesting one at that. Even if there were natural users of them in the world, combined affinities were the area he viewed as the second least explored when it came to magic, falling only behind non-affinitied magic and the branches it held. With even rarer combined affinities still, it made him wonder just how much more there could be to find, but that was a future concern. If he wanted to experiment with that, he'd need to take the time to find and possibly help grow anyone with the specific skills he was looking for unless he wanted to constantly be taking all of Jake's time for research. But with that done, there was just one final thing to do before wrapping up. "So," he began, looking bright as he did, "what do you say we see what happened with that icified one?" Having ended the day seeing what a Ben clone looked like after its outer surface had melted away, and enjoying a long conversation that night with Myriad about not intentionally creating plainly unethical or otherwise psychotic spells, the following day had begun as planned, meeting up with Amy, Jake, and Yuzu to go around to the last handful of locations that held people who'd managed to gain their 8th levels of magics, doing what would be his second last awakening event before the next wave would come, and allowed him to get a fair amount of other practice and testing in as he did, forcing bands on the arms of all 4 of them that he repeatedly cast enchantments on and replaced with new ones at a speed that made the magic on them look blurry to anyone with the mana sense to see them, while Jake was subjected to spell practice anytime he wasn't teleporting them, with Thera presently handling transportation giving the perfect room for such, exhausting the man as he did. Focusing on a tree Ben pointed out in the distance, Jake cast his currently assigned spell before watching as the tree itself vanished, leaving a smoothly cut-off stump but nothing else, leaving the others to try and guess what happened. Teleported without space magic? Amy tried, instantly wrong for the attempt. "Nope. Some sort of invisibility spell then?" Yuzu guessed, getting the same result. "Not even close. Neither of you are guessing anything horrific enough," Thera told them, being all too aware of the horrors of her boyfriend's mind, and already having witnessed a few more in earlier spells he'd made Jake try. "It's definitely been destroyed somehow, but there's no way I'm getting the little details to it." "Well, point to Thera because ding ding ding, it's been as destroyed as thoroughly as something can be destroyed. I'm lovingly calling this spell Total Erasure, and it destroys matter at an atomic level through non-affinity magic while using the space affinity to subtly disperse the resulting release of energy for hundreds of kilometers around us so it doesn't cause a big explosion. Considering what's involved, it's surprisingly not very costly either, though that is just relative to what goes into it. It takes both magics to be awakened and a few good 1,000 points of mana still. And the drawback?" Thera wanted to know, already understanding fully well that there would in fact be one. Well, it's a complicated spell, but the most complicated part is the space aspect, which also means it's the easiest to mess up. Screw up there, and instead of the energy produced harmlessly dissipating around you, you'd get what we in the technical circles call a big explosion. One that the caster probably isn't going to survive. "Jake, you're never allowed to try to cast that again," Amy told him once that subtle detail was dropped, getting no arguments for it. "Agreed. Ben, buddy, come on. You know I'm not responsible enough for a spell like that. Even I know it. Considering that I'm the one who taught you, you'd need to be really careless to screw it up. But yeah, fair. Well, if you don't think you should, then don't bother casting it, but for now, on to the next one, and for it, we'll be aiming at that tree right over there. Once more he gave his friend the necessary knowledge, and once more Jake used it, showing an uncomfortable amount of excitement with that one that already put Amy on edge. But before she could say anything, the tree was gone, replaced with a pillar of energy shooting directly into space with both a blinding light as well as level of heat they could still feel even as safely away from it as they were. A modified version of the last one, Thera guessed before either of the other two could. You said the other one disperses the energy? This one's focusing and directing it. Aw, Thera, you know me so well. I had him aim it at the sky for safety reasons, but if I get the chance, I'd love to see it aimed at a mountain, just to try and get a better idea of the destructive power we're working with. In theory, it could also be possible to configure it in the next wave to use demons as the power source and direct the attack at the portal they would come through, though that creates the issue that if he misses by a bit, then he'd hit anyone fighting on the other side, so it might not be worth it. And dash. No. Amy cut him off, a definitiveness in her voice that wasn't addressing anything he was saying, instead focused entirely on the excitement she could see in her own partner's eyes. This falls under the same category as the last one, meaning it's going to be just as easy to mess up. You are not doing it again. Okay, but consider this, Jake offered, desperately wanting to shoot more energy beams on that scale. Ben knowledged me up real good, so I already know how to do it perfectly. I just need a bit of practice to make sure I can keep doing it, and if you're worried about me messing up, I just need to put up some barriers around me when I do it. Dash. Unauthorized duplication. This narrative has been taken without consent. Report sightings. Barriers around everything while you do it. Amy clarified for him. If you can cover everything but the area you'd be shooting at a safe enough distance to try and reduce how bad things will go for you if you mess up, and have the mana to cast all of that safely, then we can talk. Interesting. Okay. Ben, any chance you could remake my mana and buff bracelets, now that you've had all of your awakenings and all? I mean, I can and I will, but remember you have to practice without them for your growth rates. Don't waste this time not improving your attributes. I'll only use them to get this spell down over the week and then once a day to practice. That's not going to be a big hit to me. All right, sure, he agreed, breaking the previous crystals on Jake's arm to remake them with new souls materialized within. But also remember to aim at the sky until you've got it figured out, to only shoot it in unpopulated areas, and not to aim it at anything you can shoot through without seeing what's behind it. I don't need you shooting at a wall and discovering there was a parade going on the other side. No worries. I'll be good and responsible. I doubt that, Amy sighed, regretting the fact that she'd allowed for any sort of leeway and made a mental note to make sure to mention everything she'd heard about this new spell to Jake's teachers, if only to get a few more responsible adults around to share their pieces on it, with nothing more from anyone else, before Ben could move on to get Jake to try whatever the next insane spell was bound to be. His eyes lit up and he gave a cheer, over the moon with what he'd accomplished. Success! Oh Lord, what did you get him to cast this time? Amy wanted to know, seeing no change, which was somehow worse than anything else he'd gotten her boyfriend to do up to that point. Nothing from Jake, this is purely a Ben special. If you'll all look at the bands on your arms that I've been lovingly enchanting on since we started today, you'll see that I've finally managed to settle on a configuration that actually works. After seeing the other spells you've invented, I'm kind of worried about whatever this does, Amy muttered. You shouldn't, because this continues on the trend I have going of making everyone on this planet unfathomably stronger. I've officially figured out how to put the effects of my authorities onto items, with some discoveries being made along the way too. It seemed that his authorities did in fact manage to pull from both his mana as well as the faith he would naturally produce, both simply at such a low rate that the effect was completely negligible, and as a result, he hadn't been able to get the enchantment to work at all until he started pulling some of the aspects from the two ancient spells he knew that drew on both mana and faith to activate, finally making it possible. Possible, yet still needing improvement. After those few hours of experimentation with a number of configurations that would have taken years for anyone else to test, He'd finally worked out an arrangement that allowed one to experience the same benefits as when he'd placed his Zeroth-leveled authority on them, without the need to come back to him to get them refreshed once the effect ended, leaving all of them to look at the new tool in curiosity. If you keep this up, then by the time the next wave rolls around, the entire planet's going to be wearing as much jewelry as you, Jake said offhand, the appearance of Ben's fingers covered in rings and arms with bands making for quite the sight to any other human who saw him, even if fashion choices were fairly varied across that shared world. So, how's it work? It feeds off some of your faith and the bit of mana in the mithril band. And I mean bit. I could make bands out of any normal metal instead, so long as there were a couple of flecks of mithril in it. Authorities are seriously mana efficient. It was interesting to make too. Despite some apparent similarities to soul magic, given the way both help a target grow, they don't need to be specialized to a person, meaning unlike soul enchantments, I can set up a factory to pump these out. Meaning I'm gonna have to go do that, ugh. I guess that means another long negotiation with the gods about how much these are worth. With the only problem being that they raise evil and destructive skills, Yuzu pointed out. You don't exactly want people training with that in mind. Luckily for everyone, they don't need to know. These are officially called growth bands, and as far as the world is concerned, they'll just give some bonuses to help skills and attributes grow. They will give bonuses to skills the holder finds evil or destructive, but also to what society at large will, and ignoring destructive. If anyone has a skill they view as evil, then they just shouldn't be training it, so it won't grow dash. Unless it's passive, Thera added. Okay, yes, unless it's passive, but these things are going to be immediately handy. For example, Amy and Jake, my two friends with non-affinity skills they need to level and maybe even awaken if they merge into your other options. Destruction magic falls under the umbrella of non-affinity magic, and Amy, it should be included in your non-affinity augmentation. That means that both skills will grow under my authority. Plus, what people are going to consider destructive and evil are both going to fall across a spectrum, meaning most skills a person holds are going to have the chance to grow. Are magics evil or destructive? Not inherently, but I'm sure most people would agree that they can be used in evil and destructive ways. Combat skills? Clearly the same thing, and oh, would you look at that? Two classes of skills that the world desperately wants to raise, now getting extra bonuses. These are simply too good not to use and spread, and the only people who are going to be able to tell what they raise specifically are going to be awakened enchanters and analysis holders who look at them, both being groups the gods can talk to and explain the reasons behind them. These things are going to be great when they get out there. It meant the world was going to be able to benefit from the power of a third-tier skill, which brought him back to his desire to raise just one more to that level. As it was, he was able to get so much power out of his authorities when they were turned into enchantments because of all he knew about that field of magic, but if he could connect with enchanting like he so desperately wanted, then based on how both had grown until that point, he would be able to do the same thing by combining aspects of all of the other awakened skills that world held. But I still just need to figure out a way to get to that point. All right, and that's us finished, Ben said as he stepped out of the last church of the day. His work there complete. No more awakenings to do. No more people to help. I'm officially free. Considering you used your earlier freedom to try and invent the worst spells you could think of, I'm not sure that's a good thing, Thera said from the side, wondering where so much extra time was going to lead him in the months he had left, with Ben doing his best to ease her worries. It's going to be fine. I'll figure out ways to keep myself busy, and once I get a couple experimental results back, I'll be able to progress with my projects in a way that will cause zero stress to anybody. MMH, nope. I don't believe you. Fine, with minimal stress to you or the gods. More likely, but it still feels like you're underestimating things. But since we're done here, I guess we'll split up when we get back to a gate, Amy said. With the town they were in a far enough distance from one that they'd need to teleport there. Might be a while until we can see each other again. But since the three of us are technically expected to be at this all day, any chance you'd want to stop for a bite first? Why, Amy, I do believe that Jake has been a bad influence on you. Ben grinned. Ugh, you're lucky nobody has any expectations for you. Even I'm getting sick of spending my last few months of life working and training and acting like we're not probably going to die. And pessimistic too. Now you're speaking my language. As for a meal, I'm down if Thera is. But if I could pull you for one other thing after, there's one more favor I want to ask before we finish the day. Let's hear it, she told him, having her own negative suspicions after seeing the help he'd already asked of Jake and the bizarre and dangerous new spells that had left in his head. I already got Myriad to warn them we might be showing up if I could talk you guys into it, so we won't be surprising them with the visit. Come with me to see one of the world's mythic items. Reaching their destination and ensuring that the three with them were all given the necessary amulets, Ben and the rest arrived at the land of the Sirens, getting to the church of their pantheon and meeting with the high priestess of Telenin who he and Thera had met in the past, Wazan. Ben, Thera, such a pleasure to see you both again. The high priestess told them brightly. Here to try your luck once more? Ah, seems so. I'm not sure if your gods have mentioned some changes to my skills dash. Not to worry, what I'd said last time hasn't changed. The doors of our church will always be open to the Apostle of Myriad, no matter how some of your skills might be named. Okay, cool, and I do appreciate that, but I was actually referring to my mind skills. I'm a third tier for them, and not to sound conceited, but if I can't currently solve this thing after doing a few more tests on it, I don't think anyone will be able to. Ah, forgive me. As embarrassing as it is to say, I suppose that one awakening had made a bit less impact than the others I'd heard coming from you. Congratulations, by the way. It's my pleasure to be in the presence of a future god. Consider the pleasure mine. If you're not going to forget what I've done with the braces, then I'm not going to forget that you all aren't reacting poorly to the news. With that said though, shall we go give it a look? I'm anticipating having to do a bit more experimentation first, but I'll definitely be doing an attempt or two today. Of course, we all have our hopes for some positive results. Please follow me. I'll confirm first though, do you mind an audience? It seems our gods have high expectations too. Their various representatives have been gathered in the hopes of witnessing it be opened, and it's been moved to the main hall as a result, but if you'd prefer, out of consideration, we can make it a more private affair. Unauthorized usage. This narrative is on Amazon without the author's consent. Report any sightings. That's what? 12 people and maybe a few extra priests on top of that? That's fine. So long as everyone gives us enough space to work, then they can watch as much as they want. Now I just have to really hope I don't disappoint. Ha, if you can't then they'll understand. In that case, right this way. They were all led inside to the main hall, seeing seated apostles, oracles, and high priests waiting for them with hope in their eyes and a few of the church's regularly attending priests waiting too. But that wasn't what caught Ben's attention, nor what left a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. No, that result came from laying fresh eyes on the very item he'd come to work on. The great puzzle of Elatar, looking as it had the last time he'd seen it, floating in the air as a sphere larger than he was tall and pulsing with mana, was setting off one of his skills. A myriad? We might have a problem here. I don't want to hear it. Too bad. The puzzle of Elatar? I can feel it falling under my evil authority. Either the puzzle itself is evil or whatever's inside it is of a societal level. You're kidding me.
Yes, you, I'm not.
What the hell do? We don't just leave this alone, right? What you're going to do is explain to the others that there's a problem and sit tight before you come up here, while I gather the rest of the Siren Pantheon to discuss this, because this is far outside the realm of what any of them were expecting. Okay, you got it. Ahem. So a small hitch in my plans, Ben said. This mythic item appears to be activating one of my current skills in an unexpected way. So before we do anything, we're all going to sit down and wait while the Siren gods talk it out and decide what they want to do. Of the gods Ben would spend the most time with, none of them were part of a pantheon, at least not actively. Helori and Nair were both single gods of their old worlds, and while Myriad was the product of the few gods of his planet as well as the people who worshipped him, he was just one being. Even the ones he'd interact with to a smaller extent were somewhat solitary, with Jagal being alone as well and Analia surviving her lost husband after the fall of her world, making the current meeting an interesting one to him beyond the topic as he faced the gods of the Sirens. The 4 surviving members of it faced him in Myriad's realm, his god by his side while Ben examined them and the minds they held, making for a comfortable enough situation as well. While half of them held some discomfort over the skills he'd grown, none intended to be antagonistic to a person who'd helped their people as a whole, leading to the conversation between them. So, How certain are you? Asked the god Wazan worshipped, Telanin, choosing to be direct about the matter. As certain as I can be. I don't know if it or what it holds is evil, but something going on with it is setting off my evil authority in a way I wasn't prepared for, meaning it was likely either made with evil intent or the thing it holds is somehow evil. Now, I hate to ask you all this about Elatar, but by the current standards of this world, either its peoples or its gods, do you think that he might have fallen under that category? He was a god of both puzzles and pride, right? It's not hard to see how that second category might have fit the bill. Elatar's pride led him to fighting to the end so that the rest of us could escape with as many of our people as we could. One of the goddesses among the group explained, taking no offense to the question. I won't deny there were times in his life he could be a bit obnoxious as a result, but his pride was largely directed to improving himself and being a god worthy of being proud of. I can't see that as being enough to be deemed evil. Then we're looking at whatever it holds. Ben nodded, even if that raised different problems that the third god brought up. But that doesn't make sense either, she argued. This item was made long before the invasion of our world, and he was always playing it off as a simple challenge for our mortals. If he'd made it to trap something evil within, there's no reason he wouldn't have told us. In fact, if it was something that was both so evil and so powerful that all he could do was trap it, he would have told us, surely disguising his warning as a brag for his accomplishment but informing us, nonetheless. But the fact of the matter is that he didn't, the final god of the group said. He never told us anything, and with no other information, we need to operate on the assumption that Ben is correct, in which case, what do? Leave it and assume Elatar knew what he was doing, or try to open it to find exactly what he'd hidden from us? It was a question that brought the group to a thoughtful silence, leaving them to go over it until at last, Telanin sighed. We've known each other for long enough that I can say with certainty that none of us could be satisfied with not knowing, the god said, getting small nods from the rest. It may have been a curiosity to us as something left from our lost friend before, but now there's a genuine need to know. We can't just let it be. All this means is there's a risk that we'll need to try and manage before opening it, if you all agree. The others voiced their consent, unable to deny that this was something they couldn't just go on not knowing before Telanin went on. All right. In that case, Ben, we'll have to ask you to hold off on your attempt for just a bit longer. Since we don't know what we'll find, arrangements are going to need to be made. So, this kind of blew up a bit, Thera whispered beside him as they looked around, Ben unable to disagree. Yeah, this is a bit more than I was prepared for when I first thought to give this another try. With something sealed away in a mythic item by a god too dead to explain himself, neither the surviving gods of the Sirens nor the rest of the gods filling that world were going to take any chances. While the puzzle was arguably left for the mortal worshippers of Elatar to challenge, Ben could say with confidence that it would be impossible for them. Whatever had been put inside of there wasn't meant to get out, leading to their present circumstance. After the intervention of their gods, the puzzle had been moved from the church to the Untamed Lands, taken through the gate network while both Templars and adventurers were gathered and put on standby, all of them prepared to fight whatever they were about to face if that was what it would come to, leaving only to open it. You're up. Yeah, I see that. Just remember that whatever I'm about to unleash on the world, it's not my fault. Amy, Jake, come on. Let's do this and hopefully not live to regret it. Great pep talk, Amy muttered, even as they went over with him as the two allowed him to take over their bodies to take advantage of the powers they held. From his first time using it, Ben knew that the puzzle's design meant matching mana inputs with specific outputs from that entire spectrum of power, and while he could cheat that so a person wouldn't need to be able to personally hold each branch of mana to do it, there was no escaping that the people doing it would need the sort of mana sense to clearly see all branches. Something rare enough that having those two with him was a necessity as 3 pairs of hands moved to touch the floating orb, watching how mana lit up, flashing and streaking across it until, as one, he used his friends to react to it. Thus began the chain reaction. Once the first bit of mana was reacted to, it set off a wave of more, slow at first but building, both in speed and volume, forcing those 3 bodies and souls to move under his command until the point that it got to be too much and they finally failed, going beyond what could be managed. The first failure of many. Each time demanded a repeat, but with each they got farther as Ben slowly built on his previous model of the puzzle, deciphering its design and the psychology of its maker. A failure wasn't just a reset, it altered the puzzle's state for the rounds after, with patterns there too to be discerned and discovered each time, ending on the wall that was their human limits. The three of them had been applying mana through touch as they observed where it landed, but that was solvable too. It was a problem for himself and Amy only, but with Jake's soul at his disposal, it let his true self and her body step back to focus on simply observing, watching where mana needed to be applied next before directing Jake's power around the sphere to strike with precision. Everything they'd seen until that point letting Ben get further than ever before until the next problem struck. The concentration of mana reactions taking place across the item became too dense to be determined through a person's mana sense, no matter how good it might have been. A clear sign to his suspicion that the puzzle was meant to be unsolvable yet again, not an insurmountable one. As obnoxious as the design was, Ben believed he was coming close to having the pattern behind it, accepting the next failure as he started again, more confident than before from how far they'd gotten and letting his knowledge build up as more failures came until eventually, his model was complete enough to allow him to go beyond the point that his mana sense was worthless by making predictions alone, allowing him to see the next point that the puzzle was meant to be impossible to beat. Jake's mana recovery rate was failing to keep up. Taken from Royal Road, this narrative should be reported if found on Amazon. Really, the fact that they'd gotten to that point meant that the puzzle was showing that it was meant to be impossible for mortals from its very inception. Jake was an archmage, and the speed he would regenerate mana was ridiculous for even other awakened skill holders, made all the faster once Ben had modified his soul. The idea that he was doing so many inputs while not even bothering to construct the mana into any complex spells was a testament to the cost behind it, but that was solvable too, giving mana from his own pool to ensure his friend would be supplied while at the same time taking from Thera to keep him topped up as well so they'd both be prepared to face whatever was going to come out. Even if more and more he found himself wondering if that was really going to be a good idea. If the evil he felt from the item was really what was stored within, then the god who'd caught it had done his best to make sure it would never get out, with the question of what it could be making his thoughts go wild. An evil void god passing through their system that Elatar had been the first to find and manage to trap, an outsider that had somehow managed to find its way into reality all too close to the Siren's home planet, or maybe just some insidious plot from that god's mortals, playing with powers they weren't ready to handle. The more he thought about it, the more it felt like he knew far too many things that could go wrong in that universe that a god might want to seal away with the strongest lock and key they could find. How was he so sure that he was making the right choice? Because if it really was so dangerous, the right choice for him would have been informing the other gods and not turning this puzzle into a tourist attraction, he told himself. Something is here, something significant enough to set off my evil authority in a way I was completely unprepared for. But it's something worth finding out. And if it's so bad, well, then I guess we'll have to see if we can't just lock it away again. From the ones within his range, he could tell the various people around him were getting nervous, the length of his current run implying that they had to be getting closer to an end that none of them could expect, and as illegal as it may have been, he used his calming to ease them just a bit. He didn't know what would happen when it was solved, but whatever change was going to come, he didn't want any first reactions being to immediately attack it. Whatever they were going to find needed at least the chance to be understood, if for answers alone, and it felt like they had to have been close in getting them. As the pattern continued to ramp up without failure, he was able to look farther ahead and believed he saw its inevitable end point, drawing ever closer. Soon enough, each affinity and non-affinity mana were covering swaths of the sphere at once until in an instant they'd reached the conclusion, the part where no more predictions could be drawn as all areas of the sphere were being hit by all types of mana at once, bringing with it the question of if they'd succeeded. If there was anything else beyond it, then Ben had no choice but to admit it was still impossible. If he couldn't see what the mana was meant to be doing while still having more to go, then that was an insurmountable wall. Yet that wasn't what happened. With that mythic item swaddled in Jake's power, seams opened up along it, peeling back to look like a flower in bloom to spill its contents out. Ben in the prisoners' minds before anyone could react and catching them before they hit the ground, trying to keep them safe and leaving him to yell out for the others around him in a way that hopefully wouldn't scare them when Worldspeak was going to be newly bound to their mind. Everyone relax. They aren't dangerous. Ben called out before continuing on in a quieter voice. This is just a significantly different problem than I'd been prepared for. In his arms, looking confused and panicked, were both a siren woman and a young girl, the two released upon a new world. There was a lot to process as he tore through their minds, trying to understand what had created that situation. But one thing more than anything else was immediately true. The feeling of evil he'd been detecting had disappeared, with only one explanation. It was clear it hadn't been coming from either of the two he'd caught, and nothing else would have been able to escape with them, leaving only the item itself. An item that was no longer giving off the feeling either, but that was easier to understand. Tools themselves could rarely be considered inherently evil. It was the fact that while it had been trapping the two that it had been active in that use, perpetuating the wrong done to them what must have been thousands of years prior. But as for why, oh damn. Thera, put everyone around us to sleep, now. What? She asked, still starting her spell as requested but not before noticing the change in so many of the people nearby. Adventurers and Templars with glassy eyes, locked onto the two as they began to shuffle towards them, with not even the other sirens safe. A scene that seemed almost familiar to her in a way that made her stomach twist, even if she didn't instantly understand what was happening before they all fell to the ground unconscious. Though it was something she'd been traumatized through more than enough times herself, with everyone in the area falling under an overwhelming level of charm. But that wasn't a discussion for then. Quickly materializing a resistance band around both of their sirens' wrists, there were other clear problems that needed to be sorted first before he could deal with it all, and seeing their panic rising, both of them in an unfamiliar place with things that looked like people yet clearly weren't of their race, the priority from there was calming them down. Hey there, I know I must look strange to you, and this must seem scary and confusing, but I promise you're both safe, Ben told them, speaking in their native tongue instead of all speak to try and make them more comfortable. How you ended up here is complicated, but I promise, nobody is going to harm either of you. So please, try to relax while we sort this out. Reassurances that did nothing for the older of the two, the mother of the young girl looking more panicked by the second. No, we have to go, we can't be around so many people like this, we are not going to be charming anyone, don't worry, Ben finished for her, seeing the shock in her eyes as he said it. I don't seem charmed, do I? I'm personally nice and immune, you don't need to worry about it, and you and your daughter are both fine for as long as you wear those bracelets too. They'll keep you from charming anyone else around you for as long as you wear them. Okay. What? Where did this come from? She asked as she looked down at her arm, leading Ben to try and make things simple as he gently placed the two down before materializing a doll in front of their eyes and handed it over to the child. On this one front at least you can consider yourselves in luck. You appeared in front of a master mage and the apostle of a god. For now, I'm going to get the two of you comfy, and we'll try and talk about what happened. It's a long story, so do you think the two of you could relax for me? Yes, of course. The woman nodded, Ben calling himself an apostle leaving her more nervous for the secret she kept and made him regret not seeing that might happen. With the child in her arms more uncomfortable, scared of the situation and picking up on her mother's mood, leading Ben to try and focus on that first. For now, can I offer you both some sweets? He asked, pulling some of the food from his rings out after selecting what would look most like food to them considering the alien ingredients it would be made from, ending up on cookies and watching as the daughter's eyes lit up, dropping enough of her fear to notice her hunger as they both took from the plate, letting Ben direct some of his thoughts Thera's way. Thera, operate on the assumption that everyone you put to sleep has been charmed, except for Amy, Jake, and Yuzu since they should still have had their amulets on. For the rest, do me a favor and cast magic nullification on them to try and speed up the time it will take for them to get over its effects. A request that instantly filled her with some level of understanding about what happened. It left her to cast a look at the two who came out of the item once more before doing as he said, with Myriad using the pause to speak into his head. Ben, we need answers up here. Who are they? What happened? What happened? Ben started, allowing the rage he was feeling to touch his thoughts, even if he made sure to keep it from his face, is that the world just got a new demigod. Help support creative writers by finding and reading their stories on the original site. Well, looks like I got us our answers. Ben started as he sent part of himself up to face the gods, finding the 4 siren ones still with Myriad. And boy oh boy, do I have some feelings about it, because the girl down there has to be what ate. Looks like she was Elatar's embarrassing little secret. Your god of pride didn't want her getting out. Ben, if you could explain for the rest of us and try to be calm about it, Myriad told him. Whatever happened, it doesn't sound like it was their fault. Ben took a breath. As much as what he'd seen had enraged him, his god was right, forcing him to try to calm down a bit before going on. I take it none of you knew that demigods could be born from pairing up with mortals before coming to the world? Ben asked them, getting negatives all around. Fair enough, it sounds rare even on this god-filled mess of a planet. So here's what happened. As far as I can tell from reading the woman's, her name is Miriam Memories. Let me set the scene. A young farmer looking after her fields in a remote village on your old world. She happened to meet a charismatic priest of Elatar. At least so she thought, and fell in love. This priest was obviously someone Elatar was wearing as a suit. He must have suppressed his divinity to try and keep that fact from slipping out. I can't say anything about his intentions. Hell, for all we know, she wasn't the first. If birthing a demigod is as rare as I've been made to believe, then managing it on the first mortal he laid his hands on would be poor odds. But what matters is that he did end up impregnating her, creating that little girl, Callie. And he imprisoned them, Telanin said, indescribable emotions coating his voice as he tried to process what he was hearing. Same as the rest of them, while Ben shrugged. Eventually, there were a few steps before that. Considering the relationship between gods and mortals seems to be a rather controversial topic here. I'm really not sure if there's ever been a demigod of a race possessing passive magic before, but at least to see an equivalent, you don't need to look far beyond my girlfriend. Technically, Callie seems like she has a weaker range and a lower resistance threshold for her charm than Thera did, but it's still more than any normal siren can resist, and those effects were showing up even back in utero. Miriam noticed something was wrong with how people were acting around her, told Elatar, who at that point came clean about who he was and hid them away, supposedly to keep them safe, but considering everything else it seems just as likely to hide his shame. From there, while trying to hide a daughter with divinity in her veins that would be noticeable to any god who looked at her and the ability to take in anyone who came too close, he apparently settled on that. He made a mythic item and locked them away. For so long, one of the goddesses muttered, "How many thousands of years has it been since he showed us it?" To the minuscule amount of credit I can give him, I can at least say it seems he had no intention of killing them, Ben admitted, for however the others there wanted to take it. I'm sure it would have been significantly easier to make their bodies disappear if he'd wanted to, and the time dilation effect on it is frankly superb. All of those thousands of years, yet from their perspective, they'd been trapped in there for a couple of hours. The most generous assumption I can make is that he was keeping them there to decide what to do with them, but frankly, I don't care about whatever that dead bastard's intentions were. His foolish choices repeatedly ripped his wife away from the life she had and subjected his daughter to isolation. All that matters is what the rest of you are going to do now. We'll look after them, of course we will, Telanin told him. You've got Callie braced. She can live among our people, and we'll see that they want for nothing. If this is what our brother has done, then it's the least we can do, and no matter how much this is to process, no matter what wrongs it seems he's done, this girl will be all we have left of him. Badias, the source of the conflict in all of their eyes. A mortal child who was their brother's shame, wronged by that dead god's sense of embarrassment, yet that didn't change the good he'd done either. It didn't change the fact that he'd stayed behind to let the others save as many as they could. There was no bringing him back to rightfully admonish him, but even then they loved him still, with his child appearing before them so long after his passing. Ben didn't know if Elatar had loved his partner or daughter. In the two's memories he seemed to have in his own way at least, but without that god there he had no way to truly judge, but at the very least, the remaining four seemed sincere enough about wanting the girl looked after that he didn't feel the need to push the issue, even if he didn't leave it there either. Alright, if that's the least you can do, then there's one more thing you should as well, Ben told them, feeling expectations about him in their minds from how he normally treated the gods that he ignored. I am currently explaining as delicately as I can the state of this world to a very scared and confused mother and daughter. I know that this isn't your fault, but seeing as how your brother isn't around to do it, What you can do is go down there, into your priests and your oracles and apostles, and you can tell her you're sorry and introduce yourselves to your niece while you're at it. Tell them what you told me, that you'll take care of them. Yes, I suppose you're right, Telanin agreed while the others nodded before one by one they went down, leaving the part of Ben that was up there alone with his god once more and let him flop back onto the ground. Myriad. Yes. I hate this world. Ben, with how hard that was to get through, if you hadn't beaten that puzzle then there's a good chance nobody ever would have. You've done a good thing here. I know. He sighed as he forced himself to sit back up. I just wasn't prepared for anything like this when I set off to try a fun little puzzle challenge. You know? Yeah, I know. In the mortal realm, Ben watched from the side as the four gods possessed some of their believers to talk to the two, allowing only enough of their divinity out to let them know who they were and got to see as they did their best to comfort a mortal as she cried, having lost her love, her world, and all she'd known all at once before she managed to compose herself enough to continue on with the conversation. Telanin staying down within his apostle while his priestess Wazin kept by his and the Mirian's side, the three and Callie eventually coming over to join him. For now, we'll be taking them back to our church to figure out housing and how to make them a home within our current society. The god told him, coming across properly comforting. It will be an adjustment, I'm sure, but we'll see it done. We're in your debt once more. Ben, we won't forget this. Thank you, Mirian said, trying the world speak now bound to her yet sounding close to crying once more. I can't thank you enough. You don't owe me any thanks, Ben told her. I'm just glad this worked out. But before you go, there's one more thing I should do. Crouching down, he smiled at Callie, watching the girl continue to view him with uncertainty and a lack of understanding given the situation she was in before he materialized a new band on her arm, trying to make it as pretty as he could to suit the child's tastes before focusing on the adults with her. A new product, he explained, one that's going to make a pretty big splash when word gets out about it. But for now the part that matters is that it should give her a significantly easier time with increasing her charm. The sooner she does, the sooner she should get control of it and, well, if she isn't able to at the expected level then I have a bit of experience with that too, so reach out to me again and we'll figure something out. Thera hadn't gained control of her charm at the expected level, and considering that the two situations were similar, they had to be prepared for that possibility as well. But if that came to pass then he and the gods could work to solve it. He'd already seen that one option was to awaken it into a dark magic. There was no reason they couldn't work to do that again. And who was to say other paths wouldn't present themselves either? Perhaps even just awakening the charm by itself would be enough. But all of those worries were still a while to come. Even under the effects of his authorities, it would still take time for that magic to grow. They could observe and plan as they went to determine the best path. If we all live to see it, the pessimism whispered in Ben's ear, an inescapable truth picking at his thoughts. He had freed them, sure, but he'd also left them in a significantly worse place, out of the prison that they might have been safe in for tens of thousands of more years based on how different the flow of time within had seemed and into a world all but destined to end in a span of months. But it's not like I could have just left them or put them back either. Myriad's right. If I didn't get them out then maybe nobody ever would have. This is for the best. At least it's as for the best as it gets. You okay? Thera asked, taking his hand and seeing right through him. Yeah, just a little bit sick of this world's discoveries and mysteries. Also doing my best not to think too hard about the other unknown floating mythic sphere in the world that I definitely can't currently figure out a way to get into. If I ever manage that and I find another child locked away, I'm gonna have to go have a loud, violent talk with the gods. This tale has been unlawfully lifted from Royal Road. Report any instances of this story if found elsewhere. I mean, I'm sure it can't be anything like that a second time. Sometimes it feels like anything can happen here. I'm never gonna try and guess what I could run into next. Still, that's done, and since we didn't just release some sort of terrifying horror from beyond the stars, I guess that means we can go home. The sound of something snapping shut was enough to instantly pull their attention. The sight of Yuzu's worry, Amy immeasurable disappointment, Jake's absence, and the puzzle closed once more enough to paint a picture of exactly what had transpired while their backs were turned, leaving Ben to give a tired sigh. Just as soon as Yuliel is sent our way so we can get him out of there, and after we figure out how to safely close it so nothing else can accidentally get trapped inside. Using Thera and Yuliel once she'd been freed up enough to arrive. Jake's freedom was immediately rewarded with a long lecture from his teacher, as Ben figured out how to safely close Elatar's puzzle once more, finding it to be as simple as throwing a rock into it once it blossomed and allowed it to be safely transported back to the Sirens' homelands. Now a far more shameful artifact of the past than any of them could have been prepared for before that day had begun and allowed Ben and Thera to both head home, making their way back to Stonewall. "You're sure you're doing okay?" Thera asked him, looking worried, even as he did his best to wave her off. "I'm fine. I'm sure there's going to be a good, long talk with Myriad tonight about everything that happened and, I guess I'll make a small pit stop when we get back to the shop. But this is just another day on the planet, right? It's always something. We can start the talk now if you'd like." "No, thanks, but after that I need a minute to decompress. I'm not fine, but this entire thing kind of bummed me out." Still, he knew that it had turned out about as best as it could, and he didn't want to dwell on it, instead focusing on a different task as the two of them stepped through one of his gates back to the shop before immediately taking another, ending back in his factory and seeing the ones running it at work. "So, this is where you mass-produce your madness," Thera mused. "Okay, well, first of all, rude. Second, though, yeah. I have to make my newest factory and create some souls while we're here too. It will only be a minute." He'd been coming regularly enough to add the finishing touches to his works that none there moved to bother him, all of them knowing that he'd come to them if he needed to, and it allowed him to walk over to the crates of items waiting to be shipped out to empower them with his materialized souls, while at the same time he used both the spare materials in the space waiting for him to take advantage of along with others stored within his rings to quickly assemble the newest factory of the bunch and a materializer to go with it, creating one that would allow others across the world to constantly benefit from his authorities. "And done." He nodded, satisfied with how it had all turned out. "Ready to start producing immediately, which means I just need to figure out the sell price tonight with Myriad or else I'll have to come back here to destroy it. Seems a little wasteful. Only if the gods intentionally try to ignore what this is worth. Don't worry though, me and them always bend a little in the end. It would make for some fun negotiating if so many of them weren't colossal bastards. Anyway, shall we?" He offered his arm, which she took and led her back through to the shop, opening the door to go home, only to find two unexpected guests waiting outside of it, both jumping when they heard it open. "Legs?" Greed greeted him. "Now how the hell did you get back there?" "Greed? What are you doing here?" Ben asked, seeing his ruby crab friend being carried by his guard. Jeeves, as quiet and professional as ever. "No peeking to find out," the crab said, covering his face with his claws. "Got a couple of things I want to reveal in my own time. More importantly, were you just in there the entire time? We tried knocking and calling out and, failing that, we've spent the last few hours waiting and hoping you or some other worker would stop by so I could find you. Sorry, we weren't just in there the entire time. You could think of the shop as having a bit of a secret entrance if you want, which is what we came through. So, again, why are you here? No mind reading. I'm not reading your mind, but if you don't tell me, I'm going to have to." Okay. So the thing is... Sparkles, nice to see you too." "Greed," Thera nodded. "Don't use me to avoid whatever the topic is, or Ben will just read your mind and pretend he didn't." "All right, fine. You remember Jeannette? My lovely lady." "I do," Ben nodded. "Is she finally trying to kill you for something?" "No. Never been more in love. Life's great. It's the opposite. We're getting married." "Legs? Huh. So I'm still pretty capable of shock. Neat," Ben muttered before speaking up. "Okay, that's great. Congratulations, man. So what about that brings you here?" "Two things. One, I couldn't just not invite my buddy and his lady love. The ceremony is in a week, so clear your schedule. Would ya? Pretty short notice. The world's not gonna last another year. If I don't do things on short notice, then I'm not gonna get to enjoy any marital bliss. She's covering the planning. We're doing some sort of traditional dark elf marriage that I'm not even gonna have time to properly learn the details of till the day before with how hectic planning and Well, other things have been. Doesn't matter. You two coming? Yeah, of course I'm down. Thera? I've never been to a wedding before, she shrugged. Sounds fun. Dress code. We're getting people from all over, and you know how varied it can get. If you wear clothing, make sure they're clean and undamaged. And if you don't, then make sure you bathe the day of. Preferably bathe if you wear clothing too, I guess. But you get what I mean. Try to be presentable, and you'll be fine. And the other thing? Ben asked. Well, one thing I did bother to learn about Dark Elf customs is that it's traditional to present a hairpiece to your partner, Greed said bashfully. And seeing as how I don't know anyone better at making things than you, well, there's nobody else I would trust to make something like this for the woman I love, you know? If that's it then of course. Ben instantly agreed, touched that he'd been gone to for such a special event in his friend's life. In that case, do you need it done tonight or can it wait till tomorrow? I'm not going to lie, this has been a pretty long and unpleasant day, but if you want it finished as soon as possible then, I'll get it sorted, once you give me the specification and make you the best one I can. Let's start tomorrow then. I want to have you at your best for it, and I came here expecting to stay a few days. We've already got our accommodations sorted, so can I find you here in the morning? Nigerian Nairobis. You can. Great, in that case I'll give the two of you your alone time. Come on, Jeeves. Let's get some rest. Their plan made, the two left, leaving Ben and Thera to go pick up Mora. The unexpected visit giving them something else to think about rather than the day that had just passed. All right, what disasters have I missed in the last little bit? Ben asked Myriad, his god's calm atmosphere at least making for a good sign. Nothing too much. Miriam and Callie were both given the best accommodations that could be found for them. You probably won't see too many in the Sirens' lands getting better treatment, even if that's not going to make up for what happened to them. It's understandably going to take them both a lot of time to adjust. If there's even going to be enough time for that is a different matter. But all they can do is their best. MMH, I see. Ben nodded. At least it's good that their gods are trying to make things right, although I would be worried about going too far on the other end. Don't want to spoil Callie too much and end up with another Aether situation. A point a few other gods have made sure to delicately bring up to them. They'll work on trying to balance it as well as trying to properly integrate the girl with kids her own age. And the other gods then? How did they feel about this little reveal? The tale has been taken without authorization. If you see it on Amazon, report the incident. Well, as big of a surprise as it was, beyond some shock and disgust there wasn't much to feel. The god who did it isn't around anymore, so there's no one to punish. For most who are uninvolved, it's simply a surprising bit of news in an otherwise normal day. Okay, fair enough, I guess. In that case destruction authority level increased. Evil authority level increased. Evil god of sacrilege level increased. Destructive thought has awakened to deep destructive thought. Evil thought has awakened to deep evil thought. Oh, perfect timing. Not how I described that, Myriad told him, sounding sick. It's incredible what a sense of dread a few simple notifications can give off. With it all the worse knowing how happy they made you. Does it really feel so good raising those stupid skills even higher? Myriad. I'm now the first person on the planet to reach the 4th level of a 3rd-tier skill. What do you think? Ugh, a normal person would at least have the decency to pretend to be ashamed. Fine, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just remember all I've done for you by the time you eventually ascend and become the greatest monster this universe has ever known. Kind of offensive to hear when there's literally a completely different monster killing their way across the galaxy. I'm just going to be the greatest threat to any god. Well, as a god myself, that still feels pretty damn bad to hear. Alright, since I know you're already testing, tell me already. What did those stupid awakenings do for you? Increased the degree I could make a target feel destructive or evil, as well as seemingly made it so the effect lasts until I cancel it, meaning it could be permanent. Uff. But I won't do that with anyone other than my test subjects, Ben sighed. It's just something to do a bit on the side. Awakening horrific skills shouldn't be a side activity. Why couldn't it have at least been your calming? That's marginally more ethical. Well, calming has awakened to deep calming. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Now you're just doing this to spite me. The calming was a coincidence, and the thought skills are under 2 second-level authorities. They were always going to grow like a dream once they awakened. Ben tried to defend himself. Even as casually as I'm practicing them, if they're not 9th level by tomorrow, then I've done something wrong. Hell, if I focus on them for a moment, then I'll probably get pretty close. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep calming level increased. Myriad finished, not sure why he'd even bothered to try. Calming's also going to grow like a dream, even without those bonuses thanks to my thought speed. Ben helpfully added, getting to see firsthand the mental strain all of that was leaving on the cube. Okay, let's put a pin in trying to prove that you're the most monstrous mortal to ever live, Myriad told him. There was something else you wanted to talk about, correct? Well, yeah, and thanks to a couple of those levels, I'm already going to have to go out and update the factories I'd made earlier. You saw it when I gave Callie 1. I figured out how to put my authorities on items for people to grow under, leading to the ever-important topic. I want to get paid. Yeah, of course you do, Myriad sighed. You're not getting levels, attributes, or blessings. Words can't express how lame you all are. You all saw how much I was able to do already during my first round of soul modifying. Why don't you all want me able to do even more for the next? Do you all hate your mortals and want the planet to lose? Is that a rumor I'm gonna have to start spreading around? Stop trying to sound like a crazy person. I'm sure you'll find something to do with all of this money you're getting, so I'll get Nair to argue a good rate for you, and we'll work out another payment plan. Okay? Is there a god of finance among all of you? I feel like someone is going to have to calculate the future economic impact of owing me so much money because, forget buying a country, I might be able to buy a continent by the time this is all paid out. I mean, surely it can't be that bad, right? Myriad asked, trying to do some quick math on the prices of the various items Ben had made and spread across the world by the millions, and slowly grew a sneaking worry that it was going to be a lot closer than anyone might have first guessed. Not to toot my own horn, but I am a genius who's created multiple world-changing inventions by this point. I really don't get enough credit for this, but by inventing the materializers, even if I'm only currently spreading the food ones and allowing a couple others to be used for tool manufacturing, I have technically turned this world into a post-scarcity civilization. Even if the options aren't great, nobody is ever going to have to starve again, and if it wouldn't impact the finances in Analia, nobody would have to worry about a shortage of most materials again either. Considering the sort of economic power I currently have and just how much more I would have once everything is paid off to me, I will technically be able to reshape the world to my whims even without considering my actual skills. When that time comes, are you sure nobody is going to regret at all not just boosting my status instead? Ben, we're going to cross that bridge when we get there and not mention this around other gods, lest they just stop trying to pay you altogether if they stop and consider just how much you're worth. When you do get to that whole reshaping the world as you see fit bit, do me a favor and just remember me when you do. Yeah, I'll build a statue of you in every town and city, not like it would put a dent in my funds. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep calming level increased. With the new factories readjusted after his new levels had come, Ben prepared for the day, doing his basic setup with Mora since Thera was going to be off doing some adventurer's work as Delaire arrived, humming lightly in a way that brought Ben's mood crashing down. Delaire? Kiddo? Huh? Oh, it's something I heard someone singing on the way. It's pretty catchy, right? I guess that's one word for it, Ben told her neutrally, all the while cursing himself for not thinking to ask Greed to hold off on performing while he was in town. It may not have been the grand stages the crab had grown used to ever since his fame had hit a whole new level, but it seemed that such a thing hadn't put him above busking in the streets when he had a free minute, leaving Ben to dread just how much it was going to end up spreading in town, while he prayed that his friend wouldn't give so much of it away for anyone to put two and two together when it came to just who it was about. If he hasn't already been spreading that very fact, he thought with a sigh. Ugh, oh well, if he has then it's too late now, and compared to everyone thinking I destroyed the town or that I'm a god, I guess comparatively it's not even that bad. For the record, you are a god. Sure, but not for the reason they think. Okay, taking my mind off of it. He needed a distraction until Greed showed up, so along with teaching the two with him as he always would, hearing as Dallaire got levels to material user and destruction under the effects of his authorities, he also chose to pass the time by making a few simple factories, just to explore the enchantment in a deeper way. The simpler the enchantment, the smaller the factory needed to be, and when he'd already reduced the scale down far below what anyone had expected of him, he focused on making small ones that could sit on the table, starting with producing amulet factories, applying his resistances and resistance enhancement to produce a tool that would let his unusually high values continue to benefit the world from thereafter, both through individual amulets as well as one that incorporated them all, making a nice, simple project to start the day. Calling that a simple project when anyone else would need to be a third-tier enchanter is almost an insult to everyone in your profession. It's a way to pass the time. Let's see, next, why don't we make a factory for a tool that can reverse petrification? Even if that doesn't come up often, it would be good to have, right? Ugh, considering what you and Thera found in that gallery once. I can't deny it. Make them cheap enough, and we might have to test them on any particularly well-made statue. Depressing thought, if any more petrified people were slipped into galleries, then I really don't know how I'd react. That and other factories helped him kill the next couple hours at least though, making for a decent way to pass the time until the inevitable knock came to his door. Greed, Jeeves, come on in. Ben greeted them, his student popping up the second she saw them. That's who was singing today. Yep. Dallaire and Mora, this is my friend Greed and his bodyguard Jeeves. Greed and Jeeves. This is my student Dallaire and my kid, Mora. He paid special attention to how the boy reacted to being called that, something Ben had said plenty up to that point, but not in front of his face, but without any other way to introduce him feeling right. He went with his heart, being rewarded with the sight of the boy brightening instantly under the statement even if he blushed too, while Greed nodded their way. Kid, huh? I think you adopted if he didn't look like you. You're kind mature super fast or something? No, we adopted. Don't worry about the finer details too much. I see. The crab nodded, staring for just a bit longer at the two kids before focusing back on Ben. In that case, work. Wanna grab a seat? We can go over potential designs. Yeah, of course. Come on over here. Leading them to a desk off to the side, Ben took a seat and offered one to Jeeves as well, the guard preferring to stand while he set Greed down on it for their discussion to begin. All right, first things first. Are there any other cultural bits about this I need to be aware of? Ben began. Colors or designs that need to be used or avoided, the style of hairpiece, that sort of thing? No, nothing like that. From what I hear, it's just the traditional gift. Okay, in that case, as the one giving it, do you have any colors in mind? Give me any number of them. I'll figure out a way to make it work. I know she likes red, Greed started, leaving Ben to wonder if the color preference had anything to do with the relationship's inception. And I've always liked silver on her. You think you can make something like that work? Only 2 colors? Easy. In that case, you want any enchanted effects on it? So long as there's nothing taboo about that either. Never heard of it, and the people I asked for details from would have known to bring it up. We should be good. What kind of effects are you thinking? I can squeeze in a bunch if you want. You've heard about the mana and buff bracelets. Yeah? What about them? If you stumble upon this tale on Amazon, it's taken without the author's consent. Report it. I invented them. You want those effects in there? I'll warn you, since she got her soul modified, using the buffing effect will be uncomfortable for a bit, but she'll be able to get used to it with time as her soul adapts to the buff's presence. Maybe tell her to have it active for a week, just so the effects can subside. Back up a bit, Legs. How did you know she had her soul modified? Oh yeah, so don't spread this around, but I'm the guy who did all of the modifications. I spotted her soul and yours when you guys were in the crowd. What? And you didn't stop to say anything? Ha, you must have seen what it was like for me, man. I didn't sleep for 10 straight days with how much work I had to do. Well, technically I'm still not sleeping, but that's not the point. It was way too busy. Ugh, fair. There were a couple times I was feeling lucky I wasn't crushed. Then yeah, I'll take both options. She's not marked as a priority for getting them. So I'd feel a lot safer if she did. Sorry? You think I could get a couple more, too? Sure, you didn't get one yet? Nah, I did. Participating in the war, and even if I'm a musician first and foremost, I'm also a blessing mage. I help out at different hospitals from time to time to keep my skills sharp. There's just one other person I want getting one. Maybe a few more too. All right, you got it? Ben agreed. Seeing his friend didn't seem to want to say who for and letting him have that privacy when Greed had already requested as much. In that case, I can add all of the basic resistances you'd want to it too to make it like an amulet for her. You never know when that could come in handy, but I'll leave off life and light for obvious safety reasons. In that case, what are you thinking about for the shape? Do I look like I've got any hair hidden somewhere? I don't know the first thing about these sorts of things. What are the options I'm working with? Okay. Fair. Give me a second. Spending his mana, he materialized a few different styles and options, surprising Greed but not getting a comment on it as the crab instead focused on looking them over, making his choice in the end. That one, he said, pointing to the French pin, a hairpiece shaped like a long, narrow U. I think she's used ones like that on a couple special occasions. Okay, cool. In that case, I'll get started. Before that, Jeeves, do me a favor and take a walk, would ya? Giving a nod, his bodyguard stepped outside, giving the two of them as much privacy as they could get with a couple children working in the other end of the room before Greed went on. So, Legs, you mind if I ask you something before you start on that? Go for it. Okay, thanks. So you took in a kid. It's a bit of a long story, but yeah, me and Thera did. It was her decision, but I love her, and I love him, so I'm in it for the long haul. No, that's good. That's real good for you, but, well, do you think you're being a good parent? Oh God. Greed. Are you getting married because Janet's pregnant? No, of course not. Well, I guess I of all people can't be saying of course not to that, but that's not what's happening. I love her. We're solid. It's just, a lot of things have happened since I've seen you last, Legs. Yeah. One of my kids showed up on my doorstep. Technically, I think she's around your age, but you know how development is across mixed breeds and hybrids, she's still young. Young and orphaned. Her mother kicked the bucket, and she came to me asking about just getting a bit of money till she got on her feet, and as messed up as it is, that was properly one of the friendliest interactions I've had with any of my brats who found me, and it got me thinking is all. I was a mess in my youth. What the hell was I thinking? No wonder so many of them want me dead, and the kids just as much so, and... Well, I convinced her to stay with us, me and Jennet is killing it. They're basically best friends at this point, but here I am, struggling to figure out how to be a father. Wow. That's what you were trying to keep secret? I wasn't expecting it. Ha, part of it at least, still trying to figure out how to bring up the rest, but beyond that, it's not just Saf, my daughter, that is. I've got a bunch of kids I've never even met and more I have met who hate me and then probably plenty I don't even know about, and here I am, a grown adult, and I'm sure it's too late for a lot of them, but I want to be better, you know? So I've been reaching out here and there, talking a bit, guarded of course. I've already dealt with 3 assassination attempts, but I can't exactly blame them, so I've been letting them slide, which is probably a dumb idea, but I don't know. I've been trying my best to give the ones that want to meet me or scream and swear at me the chance to do it, and been giving everyone else who doesn't want anything to do with me their space, but I don't know. I'm feeling bad at it. Any advice? Sorry, man. This is all new to me too. It sounds like you're doing the right thing though, giving the ones that want it the opportunity and leaving the ones who don't. Not to be harsh, but at this point, you're not going to be a father to most of them when the majority are going to be adults themselves, but it's not too late to try to have some sort of relationship with them. Just do your best. The ones that want you will open up, and as for the ones who don't, well, that's their choice. Yeah, I guess that's all it comes down to. Thanks, Legs. No worries. In that case, I'll get started on the hairpiece. Yeah, of course. You think this will be something you can finish by tomorrow? Greed, you're underestimating me. No offense, I'm gonna give you the best work I can, and if you're not happy with it, then I'll make them till we find one that you are, but it's just a hairpiece. Ben told him as he reached out and, with a small, dramatic flourish, materialized the exact design he had in mind, looking like he'd plucked it from thin air. Not needing to be overly complex to be beautiful, Ben created a hairpin of mithril and ruby, the two separate materials spiraling around each other with a thin layer of rainbow mana crystal sandwiched between them, both to hold the souls that would power the requested effects as well as add a bit more flair to catch the light. The sparkling hues it added to the overall design, adding just a little something to the other materials that made it stand out all the more, finished with a clear protective coating, needing only Greed's seal of approval to call it complete. "Oh, what the hell, Legs?" the crab said as he stared at it. "It's freaking beautiful. You finished it just like that? The hell did I send off my guard for? I figured we'd be sorting this out for hours at least." "Ha! I guess it hasn't had a chance to come up since our time in the tower, but I've gotten exceptionally good at materializing. This much should be nothing. Well, goddamn, not that I don't respect it, but take a walk is typically code for Jeeves to give me a couple hours. The hell you want to do while we wait? Then, well, considering that you asked for a few more of these before oh so subtly mentioning that you took in your daughter, it doesn't take a mind reader to guess that one's for her, so tell me her rough body shape and what she might like and I'll get to work making one for her too. Other than that, it's been a while and life's been one disaster after another. We're both busy people, since we've got the time we need to catch up. Barring whatever secrets you're still keeping, of course," he said with a grin, Greed replying in kind. "Aw hell, why not? It's part of why I wanted to come down directly to see you anyway. So let's hear it. You tell me how parenthood and whatever else a craftsman can get up to had been going while I regale you with some properly exciting tales of making sure none of my brats succeed in killing me." "Ha! Sure. But be warned. I think this particular craftsman might surprise you. Deep calming level increased. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. Deep calming level increased. Goddamn. Legs, your life sounds like a nightmare. I think you're ignoring the part where you now officially have the pleasure of getting to say you're friends with a third tier, even if I'd appreciate you not spreading the fact that it's me around," he said in his defense, only mentioning Eldritch Mind of those awakenings while Greed scoffed. "You're forgetting I saw the sort of shit you were doing to keep us alive. You getting there is only kind of shocking. Everything else, though? Your luck's worse than mine. Most of your trouble is self-inflicted. Ugh, yeah, sins of the past and all of that. I'm trying my best, though. You, on the other hand, don't have the excuse of poor decision-making coming back to bite you. The universe just hates you. You know, I get that a lot, but I have it on the highest authority that there's no sort of innate luck in reality." Granted, that very same authority also tended to doubt that fact when confronted with Ben's life, but at least in that circumstance, the reaction seemed unjustified, especially when there'd been plenty that he didn't feel he could tell the crab. It wasn't like he could just go spreading what happened with Faust, and his personal involvement dealing with the gate to hell opening was a can of worms he didn't want getting into, especially since, no matter the reason behind it, he had ultimately killed Adher during it. God, that really does feel so long ago now, and that was just after the last time me and Greed got to meet up. Way too much has happened since then. Still, despite how they barbed each other, it felt good to catch up, ending all too soon when Jeeves returned, politely letting himself in for Greed to wave over. "Well, it's been fun, Legs, but since you finished it so fast I can't exactly delay when I've got my lovely bride-to-be and a kid waiting for me back home, which means we've got to be on our way. Thanks for everything though, and make sure you meet me early before the wedding starts. It's important." "Yeah, will do. But since you're making your way back home and all, I can help you to get there a bit faster. Come on." Waving them to follow, he led the two to the back of the shop where his mini-gate sat, activating the one to the magic towers and getting a low whistle for it from Greed. "You never cease to amaze. You know that, Legs?" "I try. Anyway, this gets you to the Magic Towers Adventurers Guild. So from there it's just a short trip to their gate network. Get you home nice and easy. So be safe till your wedding, alright? I'd hate to hear someone got to you before you could tie the knot. Or would it happening after be worse? Seeing as how that would turn your wife into a widow. I'm counting both as pretty uni deal. Thank you very much." You stay safe too then. Don't want you walking too close to a forest and getting mauled by something. With how powerful I currently am, if something can maul me then it's going to be a planetary threat. I'll still have most of my skin for your big day. Grinning as he said it and their goodbyes done, Ben watched the two go off and only left the question of what else he should do with the day he had left. The kids were easy enough to look after and as enjoyable as making factories was. If he set up too many for basic enchantments then he'd be stealing work from other enchanters the world over who already probably weren't seeing much weapon work considering what Falk had made. Leaving a different way of passing the time to get into his head and hopefully add a bit more of the connect practice he so desperately needed if he was going to awaken it. Not like it will do much when connecting to so many gods by this point along with a healthy chunk of the planet's population didn't do it for me, but whatever, practice is practice and there's only so many ways I might awaken it. Any scratch I leave on the mountain will help once I finally bust through. Myriad, you around? I am, what is it? Decided to help some of your other believers. Send any demi-demons who are currently free and want some connect training out my way. Alright, considering the results a few of them got, the rest have been reared up to see you again anyway. Anyone else? I could have a few of my other believers meet you at the guild to get some practice too. And no offense to everyone else in your faith, but none of them are willing to put in the work like the demis are. I suppose there's one. Yeah, I made a promise and everything. You can send her over too if she's not busy. Stolen story. Please report. Alright, I'll spread the word. Sit tight. I suspect you won't be waiting long. Delaire, don't stare, they're focusing on training. Same as you should be doing right now. It's just a little distracting, she said in her defense, seeing hastily materialized bunks where the available demi-demons were lying to train their connect, both ones who'd already awakened it and ones who hadn't. The group he had managed to awaken had lit a fire under the others, creating a drive to grab that new level of power for themselves, while the ones who had awakened already didn't lose their spark either. No matter how long it felt under the effects of Ben's mind, they all knew that in the real world, at most minutes were passing for the different levels they were gaining, letting them all come in for the help and leave again by the time they were emotionally done, letting new demis take their place. With many of the unawakened getting close. There'd been a few at the 7th or 8th level when he'd started that he'd awakened when they'd come, leaving them looking all of the worse for the experience despite the intense excitement the success had them feeling, but anyone below that he forced to stop at the 9th, for their own well-being if nothing else. The demis were hard workers and, more than that, they were devoted. If he didn't force them to rest then they'd keep going until they genuinely harmed themselves. Forcing them to take another break of a day or two before pushing them over the edge would be better for their overall health, even if being so close left them impatient. The fact that they're so devoted is a good thing, but when I see Toltho next, I think I'll have to have a talk with him about making sure they know when to take breaks, he told himself, already sure that Toltho in particular would show up to train more under him again when he had the chance. Myriad's hardest working followers, well, bar maybe one. His high priestess, Valeria, had joined too, having a drive to continue to grow for the sake of their shared God more than for herself and beyond just connect. She had plenty of room to do it. Her mental expansion was at the 9th level now, a skill Ben wanted to help her awaken for the purely selfish desire to see how it would. His own version of the skill had merged into his unnatural mind like so many others, but with everyone he awakened connect for gaining one of his past mind skills, it created the potential for him to see how it might have grown if he'd only taken a slightly different path. Beyond that though was the very skill that had led Analia to convince the woman to convert away from her for the sake of her people as a whole. Valeria was originally an enchanter, and while that hadn't played a significant part in any of the time Ben had spent helping her, beyond the knowledge he'd given her and every other believer he'd seen in their last gathering, it was another area he could help her grow, even if harder. Enchanting wasn't a skill he could cheat her through, even if some shortcuts existed to speed things up. A circlet to increase the speed of her thoughts and a mana bracelet to constantly replace her stock. The combination was potent in training, even if it wouldn't yield instant success. The same way he could with Delaire, he could give her items to enchant on and tell her way after way of doing it in her head, creating a diverse range of practice as she got better acquainted with both the blending and ring systems while she worked on her other two areas as well. The potential within it all being bloomed the moment she got her second awakening, the reaction to it forcing Ben to catch her as her mind grew to a different scale and her thoughts briefly blinked out. Hey, you okay? Ben asked, still in her head and thinking everything looked fine but was more than prepared to pull every demi with life magic over to help, with the woman waving him to stop before he could. "I'm fine. Everything seems so. Broad," Ben offered, getting a nod when the word matched her feelings, her mental expansion growing to the new skill of unnatural mental expansion. Ben unable to deny that much in the same way that his influence had likely led to that skill's acquisition. It had probably caused the unnatural prefix it had gained as well, and yet, that wasn't the only thing he noticed either. Much like with any mind he touched that was alien to him, he felt the new aspects that skill brought to Valeria's imprinting on him as well, instantly increasing the scope of his mind in a way he hadn't been prepared for either, even if it created a new priority for him. If I can get any different aspects that awaken mind skills might bring to power up Eldritch Mind even more, then that means I'm going to have to try and get the demis to awaken more to see what it does for me. Complex mind, parallel thought, focus, what would awakened forms of those look like and what would they do for me? Could this be a path to getting a level to Eldritch Mind too? It's not exactly a priority, but if it happened then I wouldn't say no. Something to work on in the future, and with the demi-demons already going to him even after awakening, then it wouldn't be hard to see what those results looked like either, but that was a later concern. He could feel the new shape of Valeria's mind, the vastness of the ideas it could hold reaching another scale entirely compared to what it had been like, which meant one thing in particular. "All right, with this, we're putting a pin in training your connect," he said, raising a hand before she could argue. "You've gotten 2 levels today, which is already probably more than I should have let you, but more importantly, you need to get used to the awakened mind skill you just got before training Connect with Me pushes that up any more levels too. The good news though is that with that awakening, you're now equipped to learn something else. Something I've only been able to teach a few people, with none of them at a place where they can do it with as much skill as you'll now be able to, at least not without some mind circlets to help them." "What?" she asked, her interest instantly piqued for how he was selling it. "You can start learning my personal enchanting system, and trust me on this, even though your own enchanting isn't awakened yet, this is going to speed up your leveling on that front if you make sure to start using it, and it'll also make you obscenely rich." While he couldn't teach her the enchanting modifier without her awakening, he could teach her the different mana modifiers he was aware of too, and started filling her mind with that information, feeling its new structure not only absorb it like a sponge but also begin to make connections that he hadn't given her. The state of her mind primed for learning in a way an unawakened one wasn't, and brought a part of himself to a pause with what he was seeing. A new thought running through his head. If I do start any more research institutions, I'm going to need to hire her no matter what. "Ben," Valeria asked, seeing his look that he waved away. "Don't mind me. I'm just thinking about something. For now, let's run through what you need to do to use this system for about an hour of real time, and then I'll send you home for the day. We can work on practicing everything else a bit more in the future." Deep calming level increased. Soul regeneration enhancement level increased. Deep destructive thought level increased. Deep evil thought level increased. "So, this is what these skills look like at their 9th level," Ben mused before the mad god he had imprisoned, Harrow screaming and doing everything he could to attack him, yet failing as he always did. The destruction and evil infecting his mind trumping the damage Ben had already caused it. "And better yet, I've reached a point that these skills can actively make a target self-destructive. All sense of self-preservation and fear are gone. Very cool. I'm sure I'll find a place where this comes in handy one day. Also makes me wonder about deep calming. Even if the name's a bit different, it seems to be in the same vein as those other skills, so if I get it to its 9th level, will I be able to make something so calm that it wouldn't be able to react to any damage I do to it? I'm going to have to put a bit more effort into raising it here then. Even if it'll take a bit of a bite out of my more important training, it could be useful, with Harrow's current state making him an excellent target for training that very skill. In the single-minded madness Ben's power had left him in, the god would be trapped that way unless Ben either cancelled the effects or deleted portions of his memories, but having him so full of fire and murderous desire made him just as perfect of a target to try and calm down, letting him put a weaker skill against the effects of 2 of his stronger ones as his practice went on within the depths of his mind. The use he would extract from that deity far from over, meaning there'd be time yet to spend before replacing it with a different one. Deep calming level increased. Phew, gonna be honest here, I almost didn't think I'd manage to reach the 9th level for my thought skills before the day turned over. That was almost embarrassing. Stop trying to be cute. You're not good at it, Myriad told him. Hey, I'll have you know I'm good at lots of things. Evil, destruction, corrupting people down the path of evil and destruction, erasing their memories so I can do it all over again if I need to, probably some other things I'm not immediately remembering right now either. Yeah, I'm sure all of that would be very funny if it weren't objectively horrific. So, instead of being like that, tell me how things went with the demi-demons. Oh, great, as expected. Every one of them I didn't awaken before who came to me I either awakened now or else got to the 9th level to awaken later after they've recovered a bit. So keep sending them my way before I head off for this wedding. Other than that though, we have your devoted priestess to talk about. I heard about her awakening. What did you put her through? Nothing she didn't want. And anything to say about the fact that it was named as unnatural? Just that she's unlocked a powerful variant of the skill. How lucky for her. We're certainly not going to read too deeply into the fact that when it comes to skills trained by interacting with my mind, they constantly get results related to me. You really are going to have to add that to your list of things to study one day. It's unusual, to say the least. Alright, yeah, I know, and I was probably going to look into that a bit deeper in the future anyway. But this isn't really what I wanted to talk to you about when it came to her. This story has been unlawfully obtained without the author's consent. Report any appearances on Amazon. MMH, I'm concerned, but let's hear it. So, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get Valeria a 3rd-tier mind skill. Oh, but if trying to do that awakens her connect instead, then I'm throwing myself off a cliff. Myriad froze at the statement for a moment, not sure what to say before the words just slipped out. No, back up. You don't get to come up here and say that like it's nothing. It wouldn't be soon, Ben clarified. It's pretty clear that the way I train connect with your believers also trains their minds. I'd say that leads to some pretty obvious implications on how to get her past that final barrier. Okay, I officially don't like where this is going. If you get her to the 9th level of it, you are not allowed to trick her into connecting to me. Not thinking that, as powerful as her mind has gotten, it's easy enough to tell that it's not nearly as strong as the Zeroth level of my unnatural mind, even when we ignore the difference that mine being a blessed skill would have made. Connecting to you would almost certainly fry her brain when we look at what it did to me, even with all of the other benefits I had to help. No, I'll simply do what I have been doing, giving her more arrangements of my mind to help her grow until finally getting her to connect to an arrangement just short of a god. We'll of course need healers on hand to make sure everything is okay, but all in all I'm optimistic about the prospects of success, with the added implication that I might be able to awaken a few of your other believers to 3rd tiers too, if they can stand that sort of practice with me. I do want to see what a 3rd-tier complex mind and parallel thought look like too. And focus, I guess, though I have admittedly lower hopes for that one turning into anything exceptionally interesting. Ugh. I have complicated feelings about the idea of all of my believers slowly turning into 3rd tiers because of you. It wouldn't be all of them. No offense meant, but let's be real. A lot of them don't have the drive, even with my help. Too many are happy to quit after getting a few levels with me to ever get more than get a single 2nd-tier awakening. Oh, fine, all of the demi-demons then. Admittedly more possible. Sakhel is actually pretty self-motivated too. If she had a mind skill I could train her under, then I could definitely get her there if I just pointed out that thinking better would make her a better plant mage overall. Maybe something I should try to see if I could get her to gain, before the next wave kills me and it's too late. And you're back to being a downer. Just considering some realistic planning to make. She's a friend and coworker, and no matter how talented she may be, this is her most realistic chance at reaching godhood. It would be a shame if I died before I could help her or any of your other believers out. It's just a thought for now anyway. The hard part would be getting her a compatible mind skill to begin with. Then I suppose I'll have to be prepared to welcome a full pantheon of believers. I mean, you never know, there's a chance most of them would just choose to merge into you rather than ascend. The demis definitely seem to like that option, but actually, do you think they'd still be given the choice, or do you think godhood takes priority over merging into you? With the way you're talking, it sounds like I'm going to get to find out. I guess keep sending me up souls if you're ever going to do that so I can try to strengthen my existence against the incorporation of any third-tier mind holders you're going to attempt to create, because I never had to consider that any might merge into me before, and now it sounds like I might get enough to fundamentally alter my personality. A fair point. If we get to a place where any reach the 9th level, then I'll have a good talk with them first, saying that if they want to try and reach godhood, if they succeed they can't be absorbed when they die. Sound good? I suppose it's better than nothing. I can also give a firmer evaluation to any after it happens. I don't want coming anywhere close to my mind and soul when you get up here, but you're a special, horrifying case. There's a chance that when I look at other third-tier mind skills it will seem more manageable. Okay, in that case we'll play it by ear. With how Valeria's leading the charge, if I can awaken her then you can look her over and give me the results, and we can figure out the plan from there. It occurs to me I'm getting far too used to how easily you seem to change the world. You're talking about potentially having more third-tier awakenings than have occurred on this planet until this point. True, but you're missing something else too, Ben told Myriad, rubbing his hands together in glee and instantly worrying the other. I'm pretty well liked by the demi-demons as well as your believers in general. A couple hundred new gods means a couple hundred allies on my side for any future where I'm still alive for the other gods to want to be a pain in my ass. And there it is, Myriad sighed. The conniving attitude you're becoming oh so famous for.